David Collins rides into town, a man of grit and fearless renown. His words cut through like a sharpened knife, bringing truth to this frontier life. Oh, David Collins, a man of might, his voice echoes through the night. He stirs our souls, and we'll stand tall for this challenging man who won't let us fall.
Hey there, I'm David Collins, and you're listening to the Blind Mike Project. My name is David Collins. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Blind Mike Project, hosted by David Collins. Blind Mike reached out to us this week and asked if I would be willing to guest host for him for the New Year's episode. Now, usually if somebody says asking to guest host, they would just ask to be filling in their place and they would have clips and a guest. Unfortunately, he did not give us all of that assistance. Luckily, we have a great research team here for David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show. I understand that Blind Mike does a comedy news show. He said he's on vacation this week. Where could he be on vacation? Blind rehab? But we do have a great show planned. Really looking forward to it. We had a lot of fun learning about these subjects. Blind Mike gave us a list of people that he likes to talk about. So this week, we're going to be covering some people on that list, including Joe Matarese. All I knew before so much research here on Joe Matarese was just that he's such a nice guy. Tom Myers. That's a fun segment, including a Tom Myers game. Of course, we're not going to get through this episode without a fun game, and that's going to come in our Tom Myers segment. Stuttering John. Now, luckily, a lot of people do so much talking about Stuttering John already, that made this probably the easiest research that we had to do. Matt Rife. Of course, Matt Rife back in the news. Always a new Matt Rife controversy. We're going to be looking forward to talking about the newest thing, a polygamy scandal. Of course, we're going to be covering Jim Norton. A lot of people know about what's happening these days in Jim Norton's life, but I thought it'd be fun if we took a little look back to see how we might have seen this coming. And finally, Chad Zumock. We actually had the opportunity to talk with a comedian who opened for Chad Zumock, as well as we catch up a little bit about what he's talking about on his podcast. An interesting subject. He was actually ended up being the favorite person that I learned about this week. But Blind Mike also asked that before we get into any of these subjects, that we start the show with some sort of banter. So here comes the banter.
Well, Lewis, how was your Christmas?
Well, my Christmas was wonderful. It was holly and jolly and full of cheer and...
Yeah, my dad used to be like that too, shooting dogs. I don't think he confused it for the Grinch or anything though. I think he just...
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I'm sorry. He meant God. I had dog and God. Yeah, we always like to get some good banter. No matter wherever I'm at. Every time I'm talking to somebody, it's just always good banter. I feel like. My favorite banter comedian would be Lewis Black, because I wouldn't say he rants. I would say he banters on stage.
He's a good comedian.
Jeff Foxworthy is some of the best banter I've seen live. I actually followed him on tour, like Fish, The Dead. I'm a big
you're
foxhead.
You're a foxhound.
Yeah, I'm a foxhound. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that great? So first we're going to be looking at friend of the show, Joe Matarese. I say friend of the show because we actually managed to get a fun voicemail from Joe this week. We have a fun thing to catch up on having to do with his voicemails on his show. We take a fun look at a shared guest that we had on the show. And then we're also just going to go through a couple episodes of his podcast.
Okay, well, first of all, I owe you all listening at home an apology. We were so confident we were going to be getting this Joe Matarese voicemail to air on the show. I've built such a rapport, I thought, with this guy, and like I've said, all I've heard about Joe Matarese is how nice of a guy he is. I didn't think we'd have any issue with this little get a nice voicemail for the show. So let's give a little background here. A few weeks ago, I called into Joe Matarese's show. Of course, he takes voicemails on his show, which we're going to be listening to a few of. Unfortunately, he doesn't take maybe as many as he'd hope to, or we as the listener would hope to see and hear. Joe Matarese takes voicemails on the show. I decided a couple weeks ago I would leave him a voicemail on his show. Left him a nice voicemail. I was tired he's in a league with somebody that was giving him a hard time talking about the quality of his podcast. Now, I think he has a fine quality podcast, and I left him a voicemail knowing it gets better every week. We're all looking forward to it. Keep it going. Don't be discouraged. Joe Matarese is such a nice stand-up guy. At least that's what I thought. He sent me a nice text message after that, so we'll pull up this text message here and read what Joe Matarese had to say. I leave him that nice voicemail, and Joe Matarese comes back and says, "Thanks very much, David Collins. I'm glad you are seeing growth. Podcasting is a totally different muscle than stand-up, so there's a lot of trial and error there, unfortunately." No punctuation. "Thanks for realizing that and sticking with it. We have a lot of different ideas planned for upcoming episodes. Just trying to find my podcast niche. I'm enjoying the search and the journey. Joe." And that was so nice. Thanks so much for that text message back, Joe. Not so thank you for what happened next. So we have that. We're building a nice rapport. I don't even respond to the text message. Happy that he's happy. And then I go ahead and reach out to him on Instagram. So I sent him this nice message on Instagram. I'm not sure how much of this I could show. Of course, you get a little peek talking with Blind Mike Geary. So I sent him a nice message on Instagram. "Hello, Joe. My name is David Collins." We've met, of course, so you should know that, but I'll be professional. "My name is David Collins. My family and I have been a fan of yours for quite a while," and that's true. Joe Matarese, a household name, great stand-up comedian. "Been a fan of yours for quite a while. I recently left a voicemail on your show. You sent back such a nice text back. You seemed very approachable. I hope this isn't an intrusive question. I also run a small internet show where we play voicemails on the show. It would mean a lot to me and my audience," that's you guys listening, "if you would be willing to possibly record a 30 to 60 second voice message and email it to dc30minutehalfhour@gmail.com so we may play it on the show. I wish I would have asked before we had great guest Chris Scopo on the show. Anyway, thanks so much for doing what you do. Best regards, David Collins." And that's true. We're going to be talking a little about that too. We're going to go over the podcast that Chris Scopo was on with Joe Matarese. Incidentally, they shot it many weeks ago and did 2 shootings and then saved the second shooting to put out right before Christmas. So I'm not sure what his thought is behind that. Not a lot of voicemails. We're going to get into that. But we had Chris Scopo on our show, David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show, and asked him a little bit. We wanted to hear great things about Joe Matarese. Unfortunately, Chris Scopo was a little hesitant, a little pulled back when it came to talking about Joe Matarese. Anyway, I send this nice message on Instagram to Joe Matarese, and he responds very quickly, mind you. "What kind of voicemail?" And that's a great question, Joe. What kind of voicemail? Well, usually people just do it on a voice recorder app and email it to the show that way. There's a share button. So I explained that to him. It's very simple. And then, in case he meant what kind of voicemail, as in the topic, I went ahead and said anything New Year's related. If you have a resolution, it would be very on theme. Or just a Merry Christmas, anything to share with our audience. I think it would be a great treat and very much appreciated. Joe doesn't respond. So I give him a couple of days. I wait more than a couple of days here. I think we wait about 4 days. I follow up with him on Christmas Eve. I say, "Merry Christmas, Joe. I just wanted to follow up this morning to see if that voicemail might be something you'd be open to. It may only take a minute to send, but it would be such a highlight of our year over here, wouldn't it be?" Everybody listening, can you imagine we get a voicemail from Joe Matarese before talking about his show? How great would that be? "I don't mean to bug. Just thought I should follow up this morning. Happy New Year, David Collins." And Joe Matarese does not respond. We thought he was a much nicer guy. Turns out a little hesitant when it comes to interacting with his true fans. A little too bad, so a little unfortunate. Might taint my view of the show now. It's not going to taint any of my view of this intro, though. I'm going to pull up on the side. We're going to get that Chris Scopo, David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show, a bit primed here, because we're going to be looking at that a little bit after we talk about Joe Matarese to see how Chris Scopo kind of feels a few weeks after that shooting. But let's jump into this Joe Matarese podcast. This was 7 days ago now, about a week before Christmas. It's a great podcast. I love this show. I'm really becoming a fan. You might see me in the comments section if you stop by any of these Joe Matarese podcasts. I'm in there. Let's see if we can find me great broadcast. I am a big fan of this show, and you'll feel the same way with this intro. Joe. Battery Show. I'm a big fan of this show. I've been listening to this intro all day.
Hey folks, how are you? How you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing well, Joe. Thanks for asking. You know, I've listened to this podcast already, probably 3 or 4 times. I can't get enough of it. Where are you, Joe?
Can you believe it? You got the call back. You just got the call back for the Joe Matarese show.
It's great, and it's interesting
Sitting
that
in
he's
with
saying that it's a callback. He's of course, he's debating in his mind, does he want to pretend like Chris Scopo had come back a few weeks later? Is he going to commit to that? What's going to happen?
For, I don't usually say the episode numbers, but this will be episode 8. We can say that.
So it is planned enough where he's recording 2 with Chris Scopo. One is number 5 and one is number 8, and he already knows that ahead of time. Very calculated, and as I watch this, I'm a little concerned. I think his producer is trying to set him up for disaster. But let's take a little look. We don't have great timestamps, I don't think, for this, but I'm so familiar with this show, we're going to move right by it.
Chris Scopo.
Thank you so much for having me back. I appreciate it. First
Having him
callback I
back,
ever
he
had.
says.
Usually I change clothes,
Chris Scopo, a real team player. One thing you'll learn about Chris Scopo, great team player.
so it
Me
looks
too.
like 2 episodes. Did you bring a change of shirts?
I did not know.
Oh, I did.
Well,
Oh, well. Too late.
That's great. I like a
He's
show
here
that
again.
films like
You're-
it's a game
you're-
show, where people have to bring changes of outfit to make it appear like it's a new day.
You're only going to notice that we're taped 2 in the same day if you look back.
Or if
on
you
YouTube.
point it out
If
at
you're
the beginning
listening
of your
to
show.
audio, you're going, dude, we don't give a fuck.
Just
I don't
keep
know
it
what you're
going.
talking about. So, dude, this episode, because I keep, having fun with these things, trying to, figure out my podcasting, what I'm best at.
He's a
what I'm
fun
not
guy,
great
although
at.
I
It
think he's
seems
somebody
like
that
just
really
letting
needs
it
to
all
work
fly.
on his posture. He needs to work on his posture is all I'm saying there. I'm not sure. You look at this man, he looks much older than he really is. He's not adopting a young posture these days.
Is the best way to go with this. And I put it out there on my social media.
Right.
Do you have any just random questions? This is like a random super fan.
That's great.
Regular fan, whatever they are. I even went through my phone and started.
Unfortunately, he doesn't get to my voicemail at any part of any of these shows, although I may have even sent it in after the recording of this. Who knows the way that he's setting all these up, but he's letting us know this is going to be a very voicemail-centric. We're going to be talking to the audience, answering your questions at home.
Regular fan, whatever they are. I even went through my phone and started fucking just text. You ever do that one for a podcast? Is that cheating?
It
Just text
sounds
people?
like
Text the
cheating,
fucking
Joe. I've certainly never had to do
50
that.
people I know. And just see who's got time.
I don't like people that much.
You know?
I don't want to talk to anybody. Leave me alone. Unless it's about the Mets, that's all I care about.
Oh, my
Yeah, I wish
shit,
we had
my
this
brother-
technology. Do you know any way we could zoom in into things, Jerry? I know we could probably pull the edges. The thing is, I'd really like to focus in on Chris Scopo's face during a lot of this podcast, now that I've interacted with him, and I know maybe he's not so keen on this Matarese guy, at least as much as I thought.
Brother-in-law, he is going to be so excited.
Is he a Met fan?
He huge.
Love it. We're
And
coming
Jet.
back.
Are you a Jet fan still?
No, I'm a Giant fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
I'm
thought
Met-
it had to go Mets, Jets.
He's a giant fan of what? All right. Well, of course, like I said, it's a voicemail-centric show. Unfortunately, they don't get to a voicemail until about 10 minutes into the show. A lot of sports talk here at the beginning. We're going to jump ahead.
Dennis Miller, I never knew what moment chance was till
Right. I did want to
Wow.
address that. I'm glad we nailed that time spot here. I really have to bring this up. Joe Matarese, unfortunately, I want to defend the guy. I want to say what a nice guy he is. He's somebody that really tries to portray himself as somebody who I think maybe is a little smarter than he actually is. Let's take a little look at an example of that.
No one can beat Russia. If you want to lose your country, you invade Russia. That's what I've learned.
if you want to lose Joe Matarese, bring up
talk
history.
Sorry about that, Joe.
Not a
or
history fan.
politics. I'm like, can we get back to movies?
I learned all about Russia and Napoleon from Eddie Izzard.
Oh yeah, he had a bit about it.
Because he has a bit about it where he's like, Napoleon's going to conquer Russia. He rushed in. He's like, no, it's a bit cold. It's a bit cold. Let's get out of here.
It's fun. I'm the same way. Like I've learned shit from comedians' bits.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis Miller.
I don't know if he was really describing learning anything from a bit here, but anyway, this is the crux of my point here. He likes to say words that I'm not sure he does know what they mean.
Same way. Like I've learned shit from comedians' bits.
Oh yeah.
Dennis Miller. I never knew what Momenchance was till sometimes I just look it up when I hear the bit and I'm like laughing. I'm like, I don't even know what that is that he just referenced, and I got to Google it, and I'm like, oh, that's what Momenchance is.
Chance.
All right. You know, I'm a bit of a gambler myself. Do we have the upper? Do we have the over under on Joe Matarese knows what Momenchance is? It's some sort of obscure French mime troupe, I believe. I mean, Joe Matarese is pulling that out for no reason. It's very strange to me. This podcast kind of continues in that way. An odd take. So we're going to get about 10 minutes into the podcast here. A 40-minute show, by the way. He's cutting down the length of his podcast dramatically, but he does eventually get into a voicemail here about 10 minutes in.
Letting them fly. And
here we go. Actually, 11 minutes in.
I know we got a bunch of them. Let's
got a lot of
Jump
them,
right
Joe.
in,
Time to get into the
voicemails.
voicemails.
Give us the first one. Give us a lot of volume on it,
I'll give you
too.
the first one right here. Do you want me to tell you the name of the person? Or?
No, they probably say it.
Okay, here we go.
I
First
certainly
one
said
coming in.
mine.
Here we go.
Hey, Joe, this is Tony Desario calling. Big fan, long time, first time caller, up here from Canada. I just had a very important question to ask. What do you like more, spaghetti or baked ziti? I'll take my answer off the air. Thanks, buddy.
This guy's cold like he's called the fan. I'll take first time caller. I'll listen off the air.
First
Mike,
time, long time.
Mike, what do you think about this, Mike? All right, I'll listen off the air.
I'll do Chris Russo. You do Mike.
Thank God for Chris Scopo here to try to make some levity. I mean, you know, as a caller into a show like this, and I think that guy might have just been trying to pull Joe's leg, if you ask me. But as a caller, you ask which dish do you like more, one or the other. Not the best call-in.
He's my favorite. I love him.
Come on now, Michael. Come on now. I can do Russo.
You're doing better than me.
Come on now, Michael. Come on, you doing here, Michael. Come on. What are we doing? Come on. Okay.
Great thing.
Right.
Like he can get
so as great as Chris
vivid
Scopo is,
and then
we're going to
cuts
skip
commercials.
a
Like,
few
yeah,
minutes
he can
forward
almost be
here.
like, "You're a fucking-"
Finally, so the voicemail we caught up to about 11 minutes into the show. At about 12:30, the producer stops them from riffing and having a good time. You wouldn't want to do that.
Spaghetti or ziti?
Oh yeah, we're answering his question.
I forgot about that. I got
that
the Mike
guy.
and the Mad Dog.
Let me tell you what I think about ziti. I don't know about a mac and cheese. I don't know about ziti, spaghetti. I don't know.
Dog.
Working
You
that
think Ziti's
muscle.
Good? Dog, you ready, mine? Okay.
So you want to give him?
Spaghetti.
Should we give him a serious answer?
I would say.
Go ahead. Give me your.
I like spaghetti. Spaghetti is old fashioned.
Yeah.
Get the regatta, and you put it with the
You
regatta.
put regatta on the spaghetti.
Yeah,
It's like always there at your house.
I gotta have regatta with like any kind of pasta.
My wife never buys regatta. It's
the best.
And every time I get.
And one of my favorite parts of this show is Joe Matarese constantly trying to pronounce words the same way as Chris Scopo, almost as if they're in some sort of secret competition here. But Joe, I have to ask, this voicemail format, if you're going to do voicemails on the show, why bring in comedians to do some sort of back and forth if you're not even interviewing the comedian? That would be my only question there. Let's continue on with a little more Joe Matarese's podcast.
Get it? I'm like, it's because you can't. That shit it will get you fat in a week.
Yeah, but it's so good though.
It is. It's fucking incredible. Just toast and regatta.
Garlic bread? You garlic bread?
I like garlic bread, but I
Yeah.
don't seem to ever make it. I guess I'm lazy. He hates me.
Okay.
now.
No,
He
it's
hates
great.
it. He's like,
No,
Well, that's great. A lot of talk about food on this week's episode, which is kind of interesting. Again, avoiding the voicemails here. So we're going to jump about 20 minutes in now and see if we get to a second voicemail. Of course, it's a very voicemail-centric 40-minute show today.
and he's like, I'm
Perfect.
gonna get
So we're
news
gonna-
if that's a problem. And
Perfect. So we're getting about 20 minutes into the show now, and we're going to get into our second voicemail for Joe Matarese's podcast, The Voicemail Show.
going there, they lost my luggage for a week, and I had to wear this guy's clothes.
Oh my
All the
god.
shorts were really short. It was fucking hilarious.
Probably like Joe. You look so good.
Do I have to edit
looks
this
so
part
good.
of the podcast now?
No, but we got a great lead-in for the next one. If you
Great producing. He knows lead in. Jerry, you should probably take a note out of this. I'm not sure. Joe Matarese might have some bits we could share back and forth, but you really need to take some
we got
notes.
here the next call.
What do we got?
We got our buddy. This is from Anthony.
Can you imagine if I had a
Let me just get
podcast,
this.
if I had a
It's not
producer
giving me
sending
automatic,
me
so
the
I gotta go
voicemails? I'm
speaker.
doing so much on
So
my
Anthony
end.
has a question for you. Here we go, Anthony.
Let's hear it.
Here we go. It's coming now.
Chris, this is from Anthony Santino, fellow comic. Anyway, let's get right to
Wow, a
it.
fellow comic voicemail. That's exciting.
What is the weirdest encounter you've had with a comedy club owner? They can be great, they can be awful, they can be everything in between. I'm just curious if you've had any weird, random experiences with comedy club owners that you haven't talked about too much that maybe you'd want to share here.
So that's
Well, that would be a fascinating story to talk about if he has any bad experiences with a comedy club owner. Now, when I hear that a comedian is calling into the show, of course, I expect a fun joke, but a provoking question like that is just as good. I wonder what Joe Matarese might have to add.
What did he say at the end?
that you may or may not have talked about already.
Oh. It's so funny.
No
to
worries
ask someone
there.
who's
Joe
been doing
Matarese
comedy
doesn't talk
since he
about
was
anything
19 and
interesting.
I'm 56 now. Did you run into any? I have 17,000 stories right now. That's 30 podcasts.
Yeah, you could do probably a whole podcast on just dickhead comedy.
Right,
club
I'd
owners.
love to
Yeah,
hear
but
it.
it's like I got to sit here and go, well, which one do I not care if they never hire me again?
Well, you got the
and
guy
there are a lot of those because
Get naked in
these
front of you.
incidents they don't use me anymore because of these incidents. I used to lose my shit all the time for like the
No,
first
you?
20 years of comedy. If someone wasn't paying.
Now, this is what we need. I need on David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show, we have a friend of the show, Brody Toopy. He calls in, does a segment, What's Pissing Me Off This Week? I'd love to see an hour of What's Pissing Off Joe Matarese. That would be exciting.
Paying attention, or if someone heckled me, I would verbally shit on them so hard.
So we're going to skip a little bit ahead here. What he's really doing for the next 2 minutes is actually avoiding the question, unfortunately. He doesn't want to get into a story. Now, what's exciting about this segment here is that this voicemail that he answered at about 20 minutes in, they're going to talk about for about 10 minutes until finally answering the question.
Still exist in comedy where it's like they don't even know how to book something that isn't shitty.
Here we go. And a couple minutes into that voicemail, Joe Matarese
Tries to
finally
heckle Joe
picks
Matarese.
a target.
I'm being heckled by This is one I hate the guy so much I would say his name on my podcast.
Let's do it.
Brad Axelrod.
Brad
is his name.
Axelrod.
this.
So
I've
we're
heard this
name
name.
dropping now.
Fucking
We're
hate
going to get
this
into a
guy.
little
He used
controversy.
to be like kind of fake nice, so I thought he was nice for a while. And then towards the end of, I've worked for him for fucking 15, 20 years. He always booked shitty gigs in Connecticut. If it was an Axelrod, these bookers, they still exist in comedy where it's like they don't even.
Again, we're going to get into some vague talk here. I think if we get into this Brad Axelrod story about 28 minutes in. Let's jump to 28 minutes.
Gym bags right next.
This is a guy that does not like hecklers. Why don't we
Just
jump
go.
back to the beginning of the story here? Booked
But
by Brad Axelrod.
I just say like a couple of things off the cuff about.
Very
his
nice guy, by the way.
fucking-
Brad
well,
Axelrod, we
one
can
of those you're thinking that everyone.
Let's pause this story for Joe Matarese here. Why don't we just take a quick Brad Axelrod, club owner. I think we've Googled that before, and all we get here, we get recently sold to John Tobin Presents. Let's take a quick look here. Brad Axelrod, very successful 36-year comedy career. As funny as 4 franchise years, I love doing these things, says Brad Axelrod. It's so much more fun dealing with people that have a cause. Brad Axelrod seems to be known, I did a little research, you can see we Googled it before, he's known around his community as a nice, warm gentleman. It's too bad that Matarese has such a bad story about him, but seems like a nice guy by all my research.
One's gonna laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at this fucking backdrop. What the fuck? Off-track betting.
It's the worst.
right?
You get nothing.
No, not only did I get nothing, this lady in the back just goes, "You're a fucking asshole."
Uh-oh.
That's what she says. I go, "What?" She goes, "You're a fucking asshole." And I had never done this on stage. I didn't even slam her back. I had a microphone in my hand. I grabbed the mic stand. I put the mic back in the stand quietly. My gym bag's right next to me. Backpack. I just go. I don't even say goodnight. Silently leave, right? Brad Axelrod's walking right at me, right? Like,
Brad Axelrod's
I
coming.
couldn't
What's
even
going to
get
happen
words out.
next?
This was such a it could have been in a movie. And I always tell comics when I tell this story, I should have said this because this is what came on the tip of my tongue, and I didn't say it.
I'm sorry. He tells this story often to other comics. It's just not a very exciting story. If you ask me, maybe we have a great
This was such
climactic ending
It could
coming.
have been in a movie.
Could
And
have
I
been
always
in a
tell
movie.
Comics when I tell this story, I should have said this because this is what came on the tip of my tongue, and I didn't say it because I pussied out. I almost said $600. I'm still up on stage.
That would have been good.
Motherfucker, right? And I just fucking left. He didn't even call me on the phone, nothing.
Right.
I remember I still see the same therapist. It was one of those rare moments where
All right, and the therapist congratulates him, but really it's a story of him walking off stage and the club owner walking by him, obviously to the stage to address the audience, and no words being spoken back and forth. So I'm not really sure. It's not the most exciting story. I'd be surprised that he's telling that to other comedians in the business there, but an odd story about this poor Axelrod fella.
I told my therapist, he's like,
I mean, can you imagine booking a comedian, one heckler in the back, and he immediately puts the money? I mean, how long have you been doing comedy?
gave me like a Rudy clap. He's like, dude, you're making
No more.
Good for you.
Yeah,
He
no
goes-
more.
I go, why should I stand there? And I let him keep the 500. I didn't even get paid, and I felt incredible.
Good for you.
I just bailed. So you can do that. You don't need to fucking stand there. If it's $3,000,
Hey, what do you think Chris Scopo's thinking right now? He must be thinking the same thing that he said on the first episode that he was on. Too long to be here. What a terrible story. Oh, we should play a fun game. What would you have said to that heckler in the back? What did she even say?
not only did I get nothing, this lady in the back just goes, "You're a fucking asshole." That's what she says. I go, "What?"
Well, I would have said, "Lady, you're in the back. What does that make you?" You know, you got to work with it. You're struggling out there. You got to work with the thing. But he goes out and puts the microphone in. Anyway, that was some Joe Matarese. We have a third voicemail on this voicemail-filled episode. Comes about 30 minutes in. What an answer. Boy, if you would have asked that question about club owners, though, you really got your money's worth.
Bug you guys and be like, no, you're wrong. This is illegal.
It's like
a horrible
in
play.
sports.
And Ron.
Was Ron there asking a question?
Let's see.
Is Ron there asking a question? Let's take a look.
That time of year again. Time to think about holiday movies.
Holiday movies, always a great voicemail.
When it comes around this year between Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, I think about Kramer versus Kramer. Great Christmas office party there where he gets the job and he kisses a girl. Also 29th Street. Great movie.
Right.
Danny Aiello, man. He's the best. Anyways, what movies are you thinking about? Maybe unconventional movies that people don't always think about this time of year.
Oh, unconventional movies. Well, the second Back to the Future is a great Christmas movie. Not a lot of people think about. My favorite Christmas movie is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Not really sure, though. Not the best voicemails. The more I listen to the Joe Matarese Show, the more I'm thankful for a great audience like some of you guys that listen to David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show. We get the best voicemails on our show. So a 40-minute show, voicemail packed, 3 voicemails. It's an interesting show. I recommend anybody checks out that Joe Matarese Show. Before we jump over and see Chris Scopo and David Collins' 30 minutes half-hour show talking about Joe Matarese, why don't we take another listen to this great intro? Matarese Show. All right. That's perfect. I'm a big fan of that intro. I might have to... Maybe I can buy it from him. Do you think that we could work that out? Anyway. We'll jump over. There's a couple... You know, YouTube has this great search function. I'm not sure if a lot of you are out there using it. What you can do these days is you can go down to any video, practically, and you can click Show Transcript. We've had to do no additional work to do this, but we're going to bring into Joe Matarese. Let's get the first mention of Joe Matarese. Red Eye, the Johnny Rogers Show, the Joe Matarese podcast, You Know What Dude podcast. I thought that was very interesting. Of course, at this point, we're just talking about Chris Scopo's credits and introducing him to the show, but he does make a fun face when we bring up Joe Matarese. The Johnny Rogers Show, the Joe Matarese podcast, You Know What Dude podcast, the Sweet Buddies. Everybody saw that. It is a little strange, so something's got him about that Joe Matarese. I wonder how he exited that podcast. But we get another quick question about him because I wanted to ask, how does it feel to work with such a great comedian, a well-respected, well-known comedian like Joe Matarese? Kind of get some insight there because you worked with professional comedian Joe Matarese. We saw this. He's a household name.
Very exciting. Joe Matarese, a household name. Many of people will know that from, I believe it's season 9 of America's Got Talent. And that's where a lot of people know him from, of course, but he's gone on to work with
many different. I can't think of any on the top right now, but he's gone on to work with other
You know,
mainstream.
And I must say this ad nauseum. I must say this every day. I can't think of it right now. If you asked me earlier, I would have been able to think of it, and that was exactly the thing. I feel the same way right now, honestly. But at that moment, I had done some research. I was all prepared, and must say that ad nauseum.
Broadcasting centers also. How was that to work with such a professional comedian, Joe Matarese?
Good guy, He's not great with on time, but he's a good guy.
Is that right? Is he a little delayed? Do you think that's something, because this is, this might be.
We continue to ask him. I wanted to talk to him about being an Italian-American comedian, but he's working with this Joe Matarese, and I think that's what inspired a lot of that thought. That's all we're
kind of where we're
here.
getting so many notes about being an Italian-American comedian, because you're working with him, and together in the same room, it's two Italian-American, and he's somebody that writes so much material kind of surrounding his heritage there.
Yeah. Well, you got to go with what works. I guess that's it.
Where does he think of you? Because that's a great idea.
You gotta go with what works.
So many...
And that's what I found interesting about that. He didn't want to say great things about Joe Matarese's career or how funny he is. He seemed to almost belittle his way of making the crowd laugh. So I did find that interesting. And I think that's going to do it for our coverage of Joe Matarese. Unfortunately, we didn't get that nice voicemail that I was looking forward to. We did get a chance to talk with Chris Scopo on David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show and ask him a little bit about being a guest on that show. And of course, what a great podcast. I hope you all checked that out. They did. And that was another one. I didn't note it here, and I knew hopefully we were running into it. But Joe Matarese does some great impressions, too, that you can run into, like the next person that we're going to be talking about today. That's not exactly right. I'm not sure how this is going to be all structured at the end here. We're actually doing this much out of order. But that's Joe Matarese.
That's perfect. So next we're going to be talking about Tom Myers. This was the most interesting one that I had to follow this week. He ends up has I expected a much more comedy-focused show. Turns out a very political show. And he has the most guests of any show that we're going to be covering on the show today. We've pulled many clips from his podcast, and then we're going to be finishing off with a game with one of the guests on his podcast. It's going to be a Finish the Punchline, so really looking forward to it.
All right, who are we covering next? Tom Myers. Perfect. Tom Myers, and I've really been looking forward to this too. Tom Myers is somebody that we tried to reach out to and get on the show, David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show. He replied. In fact, we can go ahead and just show those DMs, I think. Perfect. So we have these DMs. Of course, I reached out to Tom Myers hoping that he could be a guest on the show. He responds, "Hi, David. I don't handle my own bookings. Uh-oh. Please contact my agent, Lisa Rastow." Now, he gave some contact information there. We did a little digging. Now, we have not confirmed this, but we do have it on good authority. Apparently, if you reach out to Miss Lisa, it's actually just a Tom Myers email address he uses all himself. So, might actually have a fake booker. Very interesting way to do things. Unfortunately, we have not been able to get him on the show at this point, which gives me even more reason to talk about him on the Blind Mike Project. He has a very interesting podcast that I'm looking forward. We're going to go through some clips of that. We're also going to be finishing this segment with a fun game. But actually, this just came up. Jerry was looking at this video, and he sent it to me, because we were looking at his IMDb, and we wanted to play some clips from his acting career. And you have to wonder, how does he get a career like that? How does he get some of these roles? Well, apparently, he's got this fancy acting reel. So we thought before we started our planned segment of Tom Myers today, we'll take a quick look at this interesting acting reel. Now, one thing that I realized very quickly about Tom Myers, very talented man. But it always surprises me that so many comedians, as funny as they might be, still want to have a career in drama. Let's take a quick listen and look at Tom Myers' acting reel. Back when he was a young buck.
I can't take this anymore. I can't. These voices are ruining my life!
Ooh.
It does seem to be getting worse. James, have you ever considered that maybe the voices are
Now,
right?
this is somebody, you say when you watch
What
a
do you
movie,
say?
sometimes you can't see past the character. You say, I only know him from one role in particular. Calling this guy James does not seem right.
James.
A real Tom to me.
Have you ever considered killing yourself?
That was my life before I met Dr. Hawker.
These are interesting.
I have a case for you.
So he's a detective, it looks like. What's going on here?
This was my daughter, Lilia. She was murdered.
Wow.
Somebody killed my little girl, and the police just gave up after 3 months. You just want me to find out who did it, so I can kill the bastard myself.
Wow, can you imagine Tom Myers murdering a man? And that's just a little of Tom Myers acting reel there. You say what you will about Tom Myers, a lot of people like to give him some guff. At least we know Tom Myers. These other people in these acting reels, apparently not the best career. But we have a lot that we want to talk about with Tom Myers and his podcast today. Can't recommend that acting reel enough, though. Right, so some of these don't look noted very well, but we do have some interesting things to talk about with this podcast. The first thing you notice, and I think that's going to be one of our clips here, 1,000 guests in every one of these episodes. The first episode that we're going to be listening to here has very little of guest interaction. Actually, it's Tom Myers basically doing all of the talking. So what we're listening, and he's going to introduce it at the start here, it seems like it's a best of that he's releasing this December, so it's been interesting to keep up with his best of here. Unlike Jim Norton's or Whitney Cummings or some of the things that we've already looked at, a lot more production value in Tom Myers' show. We're going to talk a little about Joe Matarese. I've been singing Joe Matarese show all week, so that's a real great intro that I'm excited to talk about later. But let's take a little listen to Tom Myers' intro. Something you can really clap along to. I like words a little more. I like something you can sing along to, but still a great intro, not
3 best of and unheard bits.
So this is part 3 of his best of and unheard bits.
In this episode, you will hear some of our favorite moments, plus some bits that didn't quite make the initial airings. Joining me tonight are Jeff Heisen, Gina Brown, Polite Kitty, Chip Jones, Ward Morrow, Joshua Postel, Al Casalia, and Nicole Blessing.
And that's the first thing that I noticed about this show, a lot of guests. So I'm not exactly sure the format. Let's keep listening. What's our first timestamp here, Jerry?
Since the previous, presumably because...
So after the production value, the second thing that you're going to notice, Tom Myers, comedian, running a political show. That's not uncommon for a comedian to talk about politics, of course, but this is almost a full show getting you caught up on the news. So it's kind of interesting to hear. We've heard how many people were on this podcast already. So many people.
A lot has been happening literally right before we started recording. Kevin McCarthy was ousted as Speaker of the House in a floor vote. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen by the time this episode does drop. So to cover all contingencies...
This must not be our first clip, Jerry.
I want to thank...
So many people, though. One thing you'll want to listen to are the laughs following his jokes. We have a great joke here. Here are some opening jokes starting at 3 minutes.
Thank you for tuning in and missing the 38th floor vote for Speaker of the House. Congratulations, Speaker Matt Gaetz. Congratulations, Speaker Lauren Boebert. Congratulations, Speaker the Corpse of Rush Limbaugh. I think that covers everything.
So he has, like we've already talked about 15 guests behind him. Just this one person laughing. If I was Tom, I'd say, could you please stop? It's very distracting. I'm trying to tell jokes. Hopefully we get into a couple of these jokes here. We have another timestamp here for another lone laugher. Let's keep listening. I want to hear the rest of this punchline. Why don't we start this over?
Speaker, the corpse of Rush Limbaugh. I think that covers everything. This is known as a historic motion.
It's
and
like he has a
historic
McDonald's
vote
mascot
because
as a
we've never
guest.
ousted a Speaker of the House before. It's also historic in another way, in that this is the first time that Matt Gaetz has been obsessed with someone over the age of 18. Donald Trump was in a New York City court on Monday for his fraud trial there. Some commentators said they felt bad for his lawyers who looked pained at being in that court with him. Considering all of his legal woes, there is one person I'll feel bad for. The guy who has to do the cavity search on Trump when he goes to prison.
So a lot of these political type jokes there. I'm not sure. Again, these people laugh at the. I wonder if there's a delay or something. I know he does a Zoom show. Why don't we jump to this next clip here? So we have a lone laugher I wanted to cover. What was this lone laugher that we're covering here?
They ran an actual Biden-Harris campaign ad on Fox. An ad that wasn't produced by the Babylon Bee. That's how desperate they are.
I can't tell you. That's an impressive get. We've talked about it on a couple shows that I've done recently. Of course, I do a little stand-up comedy myself. I've never gotten a from a joke. Very impressive.
The Fox commentators said that Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy were expected to be the targets of the debate. So it's a normal Republican event. Everyone ganging up on the non-white people. A lot's happened this.
I love these lone laughers here. But again, this was a show that he barely had any guests participating other than those strange laughs here. So that's about 5 minutes into the show. Coming in at 9 minutes here, we have a note that apparently this audience has gotten a little tired of the jokes.
Kevin McCarthy announced he will not play a role in the Speaker vote. That makes sense, as that's like having O.J. Simpson as a marriage counselor. And this...
Right, and Tom Myers has to kind of fill in the laugh for himself. I think that audience gets a little exhausted. Now, of course, he does something similar that we do on David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show, World News with David Collins. And we like to tell the story and then maybe include a little joke at the end to make sure that everybody's keeping up and keep everybody entertained. Never would I create a world news joke or allow anybody on our writing staff to bring in a world news joke that takes 3 minutes long. I'm not sure if we're going to play this full clip. Maybe we'll just skip around a little bit to demonstrate how long it is. But we have noted here one of the longest setups for a joke that I think either Jerry or I have ever heard. All right, here comes the joke.
Broke him.
Yeah. To say the Republicans were dismayed at their low number of wins and the absence of a red wave is an understatement, as we can see in this clip from MSNBC's midterm election coverage.
Garrett Hake, NBC News reporter par excellence, decided
now one thing, and maybe this is more of a personal take here. If I was telling a joke, I don't think I would ever set it up and then send it to an MSNBC news anchor. But that might just be, like I said, a personal taste.
This evening at the watch party at Kevin McCarthy headquarters.
Kevin McCarthy headquarters watch party. So the reason why I stop, and we're going to jump ahead, I apologize. This joke is very hard to keep track of. But we're going to note here we're at 13:20. We'll go ahead and go to 14 minutes.
Burger race did not go their way.
As it says right behind that podium, take back the house. Is it painted or projected? Because if it was projected, they could just turn off the projector. But
now, we have certainly jumped to clips in order to set up a joke on our show before. Nothing bordering on 90 seconds long before this great punchline.
If it's painted, they're going to have to put up a tarp.
It's a screen. It is a screen. It is projected, so we could put anything on there.
I wonder if one of the things that didn't happen at that watch party was everyone there just putting Kevin McCarthy on the stage and projecting that take back the house thing on his backside after giving him a wedgie. I wonder if that was part of the.
One thing about Tom Myers, though, always has a great tag for his material. Must have been worth the wait there, and he's the professional. So maybe it was better joke. I'm giving him maybe too much of a hard time there. Boy, what a long setup, though. That's perfect. So the next thing that we wanted to clip here, the next clip that we wanted to talk about, are these guests. Now, this is a show where they did not get that much airtime, a lot of Tom. You might call it Tom time. But towards the end here, he does have one guest that speaks for a good amount of time. We have noted here, and this is great articulate guests, terrible take, genius guests. I'm not sure what that means, but let's take a little listen here. I didn't do all the noting for this, but I'm glad that my team did such a good job for me. Let's listen to these great guests' great takes. We don't have "I'll get emotional" written in my notes. The song gets me every time.
What you don't see at the end of that video is he had to rush to get to the podium because he was about to orgasm after hearing that song.
So gross. He's like the irony is he's like the anti-American patriot, like just from businesses abroad to like not serving, he's the opposite.
Right. His companies, even before he threatened to run for office, were making clothes in China.
Well, and then when he tells General Kelly at Arlington Cemetery about General Kelly's son, that, they're all suckers, and what was in it for them? And then he's proud to be an American? Well, I think an awful lot of people in Arlington are turning over in their graves.
Well, I'm not really sure what that last guy was referencing, but boy, aren't those smart, articulate guests that he has on his show. It's too bad that he didn't give them more opportunity to speak. I guess the last thing that we wanted to talk about episode 82 here, this is from the beginning of December, is a strange, abrupt end.
Joe Postel, Al Casalia, and Nicole Blessing.
More production, too. I can't say enough about the way that this is produced.
Executive producers, Tom Myers, Matt Connerton for IPM Nation.
Matt Connerton, okay. Maybe we'll have to get Matt Connerton on the show.
Please leave a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast's Patreon for ad-free episodes, early access to episodes, extended episodes, bonus clips, and more.
Maybe it's just lapsed over here, but I've listened to plenty of his podcasts. He says ad-free on the Patreon. Maybe we skipped them, Jerry. Is that what's going on? I believe his show is generally ad-free, but let's continue. A final thought.
Thank you for listening, and please visit tommyers.us.
I think Rush Limbaugh used to do a final thought. Is that accurate? We might have to fact check that. If anybody knows if Rush Limbaugh also did a final thought, email me, dc30minutehalfhour@gmail.com.
Yes.
Was that supposed to be my final thoughts on the episode, Jerry? I'm not sure. We're having a little difficulty here, but that's perfectly fine. We have another great episode I wanted to get into of Tom Myers' show, episode 83. That's perfect. Thank you. Recommended. We're going to be watching a lot of Shark Tank later, too. I'm a big fan of the Shark Tank show. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of this. But episode 83, this was just a week after. This is a week before Christmas, December 14th. Now, you'll hear a lot more of the guests on this show, if I remember correctly. What do we have here? We have a great joke. Well, that's a great way to start this. Why don't we listen to Great Joke?
Jeff Heisen, Gina Brown.
If we weren't going to be listening to Joe Matarice's intro, I think I'd be whistling this the rest of the evening. Let's jump to Great Joke.
Now that he's speaker?
Oh, we have to go to the setup. One thing, we're so focused on the punchlines, I think our timestamps have been mostly on the punchlines themselves and not necessarily the setups.
Mike Johnson looks like the type of person who would have to show ID before he's allowed at Christmas dinner. Mike Johnson is the type of person who, if you took a photo with him, then when you look at the photo, it would be difficult to tell whether it's really Mike Johnson or a cardboard cutout. Now that he's speaker, he's going to have to negotiate things with the White House and with the Senate. He's going to have to negotiate aid for Ukraine and Israel and keep the government from shutting down. He's so conservative. He'll be there with Biden, Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, even Mitch McConnell. They'll be trying to find solutions to these problems. And Mike Johnson will be going, Now, before we agree to any terms, let's solve this pressing issue of playing video games on the Lord's Day.
Not only a great punchline, but a great impression. And we're not only going to be talking about some Tom Myers impressions here. Is that the only Tom Myers impression that we have noted? We have some great impressions coming up later in the show, too. What a great Tom Myers impression. Famous Tom Myers laugh. We have some great notes here. That was a great joke. Now, when he's doing these Zoom shows, he's not alone. He's not just selling his jokes to the audience listening at home. He's also selling his jokes to people in the room, the virtual room, with him. And what a great audience that he gets. Like I said, we're going to be hearing a little more of the guests on this episode. Let's jump to about 9:45 here and hear this great audience reception.
The intelligence, you talk about the intelligence, or you talk about some of the things that went wrong over the last week. They've got to straighten it out because they're fighting potentially a very big force. They're fighting potentially Iran. And when they have people saying the wrong things, everything they say is being digested by these people because they're vicious and they're smart. And boy, are they vicious, because nobody's ever seen the kind of sight that we've seen.
I should get this guy on the show.
But they cannot play games. So we were disappointed by that, very disappointed. But we did the job ourselves, and it was absolute precision, magnificent, beautiful job. And then Bibi tried to take credit for it. That wasn't good. That didn't make me feel too good, but that's all right. So they got to strengthen themselves up.
I like how in the first clip, Trump made that Sleepy Joe moniker. And then, ironically enough, in the next clip, he's the one who sounds like he's staving off death, like he's trying to put off a loan payment.
With all MAGA people, anything they say about anyone else is always projection of what and who they are. Always. You can take that.
And it could change with the wind. It's like.
Now, I thought that was a great joke. What I don't like in this Zoom call is all the hecklers. These clips that he's playing before the show, too, they go on for so long. It would be nice, it's interesting how many people are able to just do a show where they play a clip and just talk about it afterwards. What's our next clip here? Right, so here's noted, a lot more guests are talking on this week's episode of Tom Myers versus the World.
Administration. Right. I did have a little fun, and for once you actually got back to me. By the way, I can't wait for PolitiFact tomorrow. There's going to be some fun. PolitiFact? Why don't you go to the Washington Post fact checker who needs to be fact checked?
It's such a political show, Jerry.
Four Pinocchios your way.
I don't know any of these voices.
I mean, I think the Democrats can really use more people like Gavin Newsom, because he goes on shows on Fox, and has even opened up an account on Truth Social. That was Donald Trump's answer to Twitter. He has an account on there, and he just trolls all of the posts on that site, and he's not afraid to step into the lion's den.
Right.
Says I in my own safe corner here on.
I don't want to be a little wordy, if you ask me. Although, who am I to be giving any advice to Tom Myers?
Zoom.
Well, you do have to push back, and we definitely, as
here are the great guests throwing their hat in the ring.
We have, I agree with when they go low, we go high. But you know what? If you really want to get into the trenches, you really have to push back at what the right is saying.
Right.
I personally started and Tom, you know this. I started the expel.
Well, I think we could just move on from that clip. You get the gist. These are very articulate, well-spoken guests. And finally, we have another joke here. We're going to skip right to the middle of the podcast, it looks like, because we want to hear a little bit of that famous Tom Myers laugh that we love to hear so much. We're going to be hearing more of that famous Tom Myers laugh here when we get to our game. I'm very, very much looking forward to that.
Yeah. That's what it is. Actually, give me 30 seconds.
Oh no.
I hope she's getting the book.
If not, I will be very, very upset that this is an audio-only podcast.
They passed that book.
And that's too bad. I'm already upset that it is an audio-only podcast. Luckily, we'll get a little video with our fun game coming towards the end of the show. But what a great laugh that Tom Myers guy has. Uh-oh, this gets a little edgy. So we have our next note here, our next timestamp. They actually get into a little rape talk, which I thought was way out of bounds for a podcast like this. But let's see if we can tackle these subjects lightly.
Don't have an extra drink. Don't go to here. Don't wear this. Don't do this. And I've seen a meme before where it comes up and says, "Here's the easiest way to solve rape: men, don't rape anyone."
I have to go back a little bit.
You know?
And who's making these decisions?
But this woman gets on this long-winded story here. Tom Myers, not one to really, what do they call it, guiding the ship? I wonder if Tom Myers clearly does no background in broadcasting. I'll say that much.
Judging what a 16-year-old's wearing.
I had a group of middle school girls before who they were upset about a dress code that the principal of that school was trying to enforce, and the dress code the principal was enforcing was not consistent with what the student handbook laid out.
Why don't we role play a little? Let's say I'm Tom Myers and I'm hosting the show here. Maybe we ask a reinforcing question. So what was the school code?
Like, it can't be distracting or like dangerous or
okay. Well, how do you describe
or hateful?
Well, how do you think you might define distracting? Would a teenage boy be distracted by people wearing provocative clothing? That might be the answer to the question here. I think I'm kind of jumping the point. All I'm saying is that as a host, you might want to give the devil's side of the argument. Is that what they say?
So it can't have swastika or alcohol or both.
Well, swastika would certainly be distracting.
And short shorts, and that's what this principal was trying to enforce in the school where it was not consistent with the dress code. And so the girls wanted me to like sign a petition about it, and I was like, oh well, hey, hold on, what am I agreeing to by signing? And they were like, oh,
it's a good question.
And I was like, okay, well, I can't quite like walk out.
She should be hosting the show.
Like I'm a Maryland teacher. We don't have a right to strike.
Uh-oh, she doxed herself.
You do your thing though, but I do. Have you tried talking to them about it? Like maybe you could just like try first, just see if they're in a good mood.
And plus, you've gotten into a sling with administration before.
So anybody lost as lost as I was the first 2 times listening to this woman go on. She is telling a story where she's a teacher. There are students that are being addressed for their provocative clothing. The students are staging a walkout, and she is somewhat encouraging it, but still trying to keep some neutrality. That's basically the crux of the story there. Now, how fast did I get that story across, Jerry? Pretty quickly.
Really not looking to do
It's a short story.
Oh, this was before my sling, actually. It might have been the beginning of my sling. But, okay, but really, like, because of this talk I had with these kids, the administration knew the walkout was coming instead of it just being sprung on them. It wasn't my idea.
So it's unclear if she ratted the students out then, because she's apparently the only one in the story. It's not even important. I am a little dug deep into this. I'm kind of engaged with. I want to know what happens at the end, but I do see this is a bit trivial.
They told me they were going to do it, and I was like, well, looking at the handbook, it looks like you're right about the dress code. It's not consistent. Like I can read that and see that you're right about that.
And as a host, you might talk about it may be consistent. There's something to be talking about.
As a person, I'm suggesting that you talk to them first, because I think it'll go better for you if you like go in soft and you try to read.
At this point, we're listening to Tom Myers' show. I don't even know this woman's name. She's completely hijacked the show.
With them first, then if they don't meet your demands, it says right here, you have this right to do this. I'm not going to stand in your way. And then I even told them, I was like, and also you can take that thing I just said and
she gives space. She's ready to end the story. Nobody is picking. They're all enthralled by the story, waiting for the end.
Say, get out of here. I'm going to walk out right now. You have a right to do that. That's just my human to human advice. And they did. They talked to the administrators, and what they reported back to me that they got told was an administrator said to them, let me put the reason for the dress code like this. You can't expect a bear and a salmon to work in the same office and for the bear to not be tempted to eat the salmon.
Right.
What?
So,
Jerry, could we edit in that GIF of the people reacting excited that somebody had just? I think that's a great line. I wouldn't imagine HR must be having a field day on that school, but
What's the salmon's fault?
The fact that he used a fish metaphor just makes it all the more creepy.
The fact that he quoted late comedian Patrice O'Neill.
Uh-oh.
Oh no!
Was Patrice pregnant?
That was the quote.
So he's blaming the salmon for the bear's behavior.
Maybe we should do something about the bears. I don't know. Like,
well, you heard it here. She thinks that we should kill all the bears. So it was a little strange. I'm not sure. That might they would get her in trouble. That's very homophobic.
Or just pick a better comedian to quote.
Right.
There's plenty others.
Right. So I guess our timestamp is, but they were getting into some odd rape talk, and that's how the subject came up. So it does get a little edgy on this show. And then they start making jokes about a dead pregnant man. It's very strange. That was Tom Myers versus the rest of the world. Wow, he already took on the world, huh? While we're talking about Tom Myers, we have a fun game that we're really looking forward to producing and showing you guys today. It's a fun Finish the Punchline. Now, I understand many of you may not watch David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show yet. But it is a fun show where we like to play games with our guest. One of those games occasionally is Finish the Punchline. Now, Tom Myers has a lot of friends on this show. One of them we're going to be getting into right now. What's her name? Is Kristen Woodhall or something like that? Kirsten Whittle? It was... We get a drum roll? Jerry's going to be working all night. Christine Knowlton. Now, this is round one of our Finish the Punchline with Christine Knowlton. But let's get a little acquainted with who she is.
Ladies and gentlemen, start the applause, show some love for the one, the only, Christine Knowlton!
Yeah! Now, one thing you'll notice about this woman, because we're going to be playing a couple rounds of this show, in this other clip, and every time you see her, she looks completely different. So this is a fun look for her, a fun... maybe Wizard of Oz inspired. I'm not sure what's going on here, but it's fun to see. Let's continue to look.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It's so great to be here. I'm so excited. Anyway.
Now she's a little quiet for some reason, so you'll have to bear with us.
Some old jokes back and some new jokes all at the same time.
I thought we'd just play a little bit. We'd let her introduce herself. You'll get a little fun feel for her type of sense of humor, and then we'll start. And I'll make sure to give everybody a warning, and we'll start with Finish the Punchline here a little bit into her set. And we won't listen to so much of her the second time around, but I just wanted to make sure everybody is up to date on this great Christine Knowlton. We'll have to check if she tours or anything. I'd love to see her live.
If you've heard these jokes 3 years ago, you're going to hear them again tonight. Also, the song at the end of this is actually 10 years old, so woo! Damn.
Woo!
All right. I've been doing that since
Wow.
before comedy. Holy crap.
Before comedy.
But,
Well, I hope it's a comedy-related song.
Very important question, and this might be
Boy,
the
that
most
Tom Myers
important
laugh
question
never
of the
stops.
night. Is there anyone here with
It's
an
infectious.
uncircumcised penis?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trampling over this young woman's
Most
material.
important question of the night. Is there anyone here with an uncircumcised penis?
Uncircumcised penis.
Yes.
Woo!
Oh,
yes.
All right, she's
No.
clapping. I wonder if that's part of the joke.
I knew you.
Mommy.
Oh, wait, what? Anyway, uncircumcised penises are so great. I mean, they come with their own little sleeping bag, and they're just so snuggly, and oh my God! But have you ever tried to jack one of those things off? Right? I mean, you just keep pumping and pumping and pumping.
Wow.
I mean, it's like waiting for the groundhog to come out on Groundhog's Day. Right? Oh my gosh.
Like waiting for the groundhog to come out on Groundhog's Day. All right, I think we're coming up to our joke here, but everybody's getting... She's a lot like Tom Myers. I think they come from the same school of comedy where they love to add these extra tags to things, and I love a good tag. Identity crisis. That's our key word here. We're about to get to our round of Finish the Punchline.
And if that bitch is big enough, it's going to see its own shadow. Am I right?
Right.
Oh my god, we're gonna be walking funny in the morning. I really hope that there's only a few more weeks of winter. But anyway, back to pumping, right? It's like finally, it's like you're pumping. He finally gets his little head out, and he looks like Uncle Fester.
Woo! Yeah.
Oh, that's a good, timely joke, Uncle Fester. Well, is that the song that she wrote 10 years ago, maybe?
Expecting more, you're in the wrong show.
We are at the right show, Christine. Don't worry.
Actually, the note for that joke is uncircumcised groundhog.
Well, that certainly makes sense.
So I'm definitely going through one of those identity crises, right? It's like I can't be going through like early menopause or something simple like a normal goddamn person, right? I'm either a chicken, I'm either clucking away, or I'm a goddamn cat. All right, let me explain. Okay, my last improv show, I played and sang like a cat. All right, again, I'm either a cat or a chicken. Some people in some cultures would say they taste the same.
Let me explain. Some cultures might say they taste the same. Blank. Christine Knowlton, finish the punchline. Other cultures must say they taste the same. Blank. Is it A? But I like to say, I'm a much more chicken. Is it B? So I guess that makes me the other white meat. Is it C? I say, as long as it doesn't taste like an uncircumcised penis. Or is it D? The difference is, the cat can taste both. Those are all great punchlines, if you ask me. What do you think that punchline might be? Give yourself a little bit here. Let's jump back into that setup.
Damn cat, all right? Let me explain. Okay, my last improv show, I played and sang like a cat. All right? Again, I'm either a cat or a chicken. Some people in some cultures would say they taste the same. So I guess that makes me the other white meat.
That was B. So I guess that makes me the other white meat. Well, that's a good joke. Why don't we jump to round 2? I know everybody wants to finish that. Remember, check out Christine Knowlton's YouTube. You can find her very easily. You search headlines, the Tom Myers, maybe if you leave Tom Myers out there, but Christine Knowlton, you'll find that pretty quickly. We have one more round here of Finish the Punchline to wrap up our Tom Myers segment. Then we're looking forward. We're going to be talking about Joe Matarese next. That's exciting. Big fan of that Joe Matarese, although I'm a little upset with the guy right now. We'll have to talk about that. Christine Knowlton. I think we just start the whole thing too. Her sound is much better in this one, fortunately.
Your next comic on our virtual stage. Always a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. Big round of applause. Show some love for Christine Knowlton.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here tonight.
Boy, I hope this fixes it. It's only coming out of one ear for some reason. Her audio is much better, but it's only mono.
Myself. It has nothing to do with masturbation this
I guess that makes it stereo, huh?
I started the week off by putting on my virtual headset. Don't do that if you're over fucking 45. It's like getting a hangover without fucking drinking. I'm not kidding. And then
this woman is killing.
About all the other stupid shit I did. You know, like taking a nap and twisting my ankle. Yeah, that happened. You're stuck in that fucking blanket like a burrito. Anything can happen. I electrocuted myself with my own car battery.
Right. Well, I would never want her in my burrito.
It was awesome. Gave myself a concussion on my own fucking computer desk. I blanked that one out. What else can I do? Oh, yeah. I did hit a deer with my car. Ironically, when it's pitch black at night, I could see a little critter run across the road. Big deer right in the fucking road. Nothing. Boom, smack. So I'm just a calamity. So please, for the love of God, send me some bubble wrap.
I mean, gosh, she's like Mrs. Magoo. Emphasis on the goo. She's falling all over the place. This is way too much. You know, let's go ahead and jump into that second round to finish the punchline now that we've enjoyed Christine Knowlton here.
I've only just begun. That was corny. All right.
You're right. That was corny. Nothing else you said, though.
So I have balls. I wear them on my chest.
All right. Well, here comes the joke. Everybody pay attention. Here comes the joke. Round 2. Finish the punchline.
All right. Enough of that crap. Let's get this thing started. Okay. So I have balls. I wear them on my chest. I call them my chesticles.
Uh-oh.
When I was young, I wore a training Not sure what I wore one for. Not like they can do circus tricks.
Not like they can do circus tricks. What does Christine Knowlton say next? Is it A? But then again, neither can a pile of bricks. Is it B? Of course, we're talking about tits. Is it C? They're not even that nice to appear on Netflix. Or is it D? Although they would be enough to impress these Zoom comics. A, B, C, or D. Finish the punchline. Not like they can do circus tricks. Let's go back to the beginning of that song and see if you guys can finish the punchline.
Them, my chesticles.
Chesticles. What a great name for a song.
When I was young, I wore a training bra. Not sure what I wore one for. Not like they can do circus tricks. They're not even that nice to appear on Netflix. But they're definitely on OnlyFans. Go check it out. It's Vintage Babe 69.
Vintage Babe 69. A lot of cam girls on the show today. That was Finish the Punchline with Christine Knowlton. What was that? Something about being on Netflix. Not even good enough to be on Netflix. And that was our coverage of Tom Myers. Do we have any last notes here? Note how difficult. I'm not sure what that might mean, but that was Tom Myers. What's next?
Right. Well, next we're going to be talking about Stuttering John. I had the opportunity to learn a lot about Stuttering John this week. I hadn't had the opportunity before. It seemed just like another member of Howard Stern's show that had come and gone. Turns out he's been very alive on the internet the last few years, with many other shows already covering him. So we had the opportunity to just create a compilation of those shows talking about him, so we can just get the quick hits.
Perfect. And next we're going to be covering a very popular subject, Stuttering John. Now, I'm not too familiar with this Stuttering John character, really. I understand that he was a great host of The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, I believe, and maybe The Late Show, whichever one it was. And I understand that he was on Howard Stern for many years. Now, we lucked out here. We were going to look at some Stuttering John content, maybe put together a few clips and react to it, but it seems that there are so many shows that already do that. Now, this is already a couple weeks old, but I think the biggest news in the Stuttering John universe actually has to do with him possibly lying about graduating from college at NYU. A very exciting story. Luckily, so many shows have already talked about it. Now, I'm not exactly convinced here. It is a strange thing to see. I'm not even sure why so many people are following this person that hasn't worked in the industry for quite a long time now, but there is clearly a business behind it. So we're going to take a look at a quick compilation here that Jerry had made. Fortunately, everybody talking about this same subject with the NYU diploma. So let's take a little listen here.
Hey, she's beautiful.
Now, the first thing I notice about these shows, a lot of these people are just making fun of this guy's looks. Now, say what you will about this poor Stuttering John, not the worst looking guy out there. I'd say he really held it together. I think he's in his late 60s at this point. You know, he's not looking too bad. You should see some of the people that I used to be related to.
That's a good one.
Nice place, huh? Really nice. Hey, stick your head in here, Dan. Say hi to everybody.
Oh, what's happening?
Hey, Hitman Dave. Hey, look at that.
Oh, he burglar. I'm gonna come over there, bang my old lady.
Not only is he a fine-looking guy, clearly has friends visiting him. So I'm not sure why this guy gets so much hate here, but it is interesting. Why don't we take a little deep dive here into this diploma nonsense? One thing, even before all of these shows were recorded, you'll see a timestamp here up there for December 15th, it looks like this was recorded. Even at that point, they've already had an independent, alleged former news investigator confirm through the NYU records that they did not have a graduation from this Stuttering John Melendez character. So, although it is just an anonymous tip, it seems that the issue's already kind of been solved, even leading up into this investigation.
I got it. I'll pay. We'll go over there. We're gonna.
You got it, brother.
You know.
Hey, burglar! I'm gonna come anal sex in your pool.
It's like retarded. He's like too.
Of course, good to see Cardiff Electric working, although I think that he could be doing better projects than reacting to such a former host there. Cardiff Electric, a very talented potato that I had the pleasure of meeting.
Retarded, like 16-year-olds.
Hell! Oh, look at all these idiots.
And I was also disappointed to see friend of the show, Anthony Zenhauser, falling into this negativity. Now, Stuttering John Melendez, I believe he's actually written for multiple roasts in the past, so he does have some of a comedy writing career. Anthony Zenhauser, also somebody with a comedy writing career, that does a lot of works for roasts around the country. So it is only too bad that he was falling into some of this mudslinging. Also, speaking of mudslinging, can't wait to talk about somebody else I learned about this week.
They're still buying into they're buying in to the Shuley narrative, which is the lamest attempt to try and fucking get viewers to unsync.
I mean that all of these things are framed. First, he has to show this off.
Don't want to dox my
Oh no!
Look at that.
Are you
Look at
nuts?
that. You got to be pretty smart to.
So, as Stuttering John is going through trying to prove to his audience that he did in fact graduate from NYU, among all these new assertions and allegations, he's showing other awards that he's gotten over his lifetime of accomplishments. Now, this one that we're seeing, these people reviewing his footage seem to not understand how difficult it is to get a real estate license, especially in multiple states. This John Melendez, Edward Melendez, did in fact get his real estate license in the state of California. Not an unimpressive take.
Real estate salesperson license. No.
There it is, all
Oh.
He goes, you have to be pretty smart.
I agree. You do have to be pretty smart.
Substitute teacher.
Yes. Real estate is what you do when you give up on your dreams.
Yes, you fall back on that.
Oh.
A real frame?
Give up on your dreams, maybe of working a boring 9 to 5 the rest of your life. That real estate license have made a lot of people into very rich men.
Store? Wow.
Ooh.
That's pretty cool.
All right.
John's turning into a
Now we see Bob Levy in there too. Another person, of course, Anthony Zenhauser there, now covered by a poor chatter. Bob Levy, I only wanted to mention, I almost had the opportunity to work with the great Bob Levy at some point. Unfortunately, something came up, and I actually was speaking with one of his producers, and they had told me that Bob Levy gets a little concerned if somebody might be sharing too much of the spotlight on a stream here. But then I see him on something like this, and he's sharing the spotlight fine. So I do wonder what that reason that I wasn't able to work with him ends up being there. Maybe he'd be a good person to reach out to and get him on David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show, though. It's too bad that even him, a professional comedian for so many years, is still falling into this negativity, though.
There's my puffed up hairdo.
You look like a douche.
I think that's a great hairdo.
Believe it or not.
Looks like more like cock slide. Man.
We bleep that,
And
Jerry.
then I find the certificate of obedience that I put through all my other degrees, diplomas, whatever you call them.
He's joking, right?
Certificate of obedience. So he has a certificate of obedience for his dog obedience training. That's pretty impressive for a dog named Gunter. Well, great job, Gunter, on that dog obedience training.
It's framed. He packed it and sent it to Florida. He literally is proud of this dog obedience
as he should be.
Certificate. What a loser.
Doesn't that go to the dog?
Yeah, it's fucking weird.
That's very weird. That's the weirdest thing so far is that he's keeping. Listen, we all love our dogs, but is that what you're going to keep as a memento of your dog?
Right.
I think so. That might be. If I had a nice certificate of obedience training for my late dog, I probably would have kept that also. Now, on this note, I do have a little memento here. Of course, my poor dog, he had too many run-ins with a pet sitter, let's say. It didn't end well for my poor little Dirk there. But I like to keep a momentum too, and if he had that obedience training, I probably would keep that also. I'll say what's more pathetic than keeping an obedience training certificate: 8 men all talking about it. Well, 9, I guess, if you count me.
Got a great picture of it, you know?
All these were in bubble wrap.
Well, that's a great idea.
Wow. Rest in peace, Gunter.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
Then I find my Nassau Community College degree. John E. Melendez, the degree of Associate in Arts.
Right. Well, that's impressive. I didn't know the Stuttering John was also an artist. An artist, and he should be proud. That is a proud face, and he should be proud of that degree. I should have grabbed my Manhattan State University degree and had it out for this segment.
He's smug about having a 2-year degree from a community college.
For arts.
Arts.
Right.
General arts.
What an idiot.
Oh my God. Look at how dainty the motherfucker is.
Oh, then I find
And there it is.
Nassau Community College.
Oh, no, we're still on the community college degree,
Okay,
it looks like.
degree, associate in arts.
Right.
Okay.
That's impressive.
John
You know what's nice
Melendez.
about these guys? At least they didn't make fun of the degree. It is an impressive degree. I think those people we were looking at before, a little over the shark, you might say.
It's the degree of Associate in Arts.
That is the name they gave NYU's office, and they said they have no record of you. John E. Melendez.
This
Right.
is building up to the big reveal. You know, Shuli's been saying it. I was saying it. John did not get a degree from NYU. So then John pulls out what is an amazing Photoshop.
Now, somebody will have to
give him credit
correct
for
me
this.
here.
It does.
Everybody is only saying that based on the one anonymous source saying that they had actually gone ahead and called the university. But I don't believe any of these people speaking have gone ahead and just phoned the university. I might have half a mind to give them a call during the recording of this segment today.
Look like maybe NYU produced this. I know they didn't because John didn't graduate.
Here's where he pulls out the diploma.
Looking forward to it.
This is his big win. This is his. He's in his glory now. This is the 4 touchdowns in one game moment. This is. I got them all, Ma. I got them all.
And here, Ma.
There it is, New York University. John Edward Melendez.
Hey, look at the official NYU stamp. And what is it? Let me read it.
Diplomas don't have stamps.
No, they don't have stamps. Thank you.
It's got the official NYU stamp.
I found it on
And
Amazon.
what is it? Let me read it for you, shall I?
Yeah, what does
Wouldn't
that
it be
cost
great
on
if he couldn't
eBay?
Honestly.
Too.
Well, you can buy a diploma here for I'm seeing 214, 349.
Well, that doesn't prove
Somebody
anything.
send me a link on Twitter. $60. You can have.
Oh.
Well, apparently you can buy diplomas all over. I don't see any evidence that he has gone ahead and purchased the diploma. And in so many of other of these shows, they're criticizing John Melendez for having spent all of his money after such a great career. If he spent all his money, how is he buying degrees?
Deal.
The president, professors, and trustees of New York University, to all persons to whom this writing may
moment.
greeting. Be it known that we, in
He's reading
recognition
his diploma
of the
word for word.
successful
As he should.
completion of the requisite course of study,
I'm not sure why I clipped all this.
He thinks he's announcing the new pope.
still in the same frame.
Suggestion, John.
Guys, I have to say, my face is hurting from laughing right now. John's show has never been better. He is killing it.
You know,
right
this
now.
Carl guy I'll be looking forward to talking about in a little bit, though. His face must hurt all the time. He cannot stop laughing. That was the only coverage of Stuttering John I wanted to get into this week. Just a quick talk about his degree scandal. We're still waiting for the facts to come out there. Unfortunately, he has teased that he may be done podcasting. Fortunately, though, he has already continued podcasting, so I'm not sure exactly what rumors those were, but that was Stuttering John.
Next, we have Jim Norton. Now, Jim Norton had been talked a lot about in comedy circles these days with his new mysterious relationship. So we thought it'd be good to take a look back in the history of that, look at what's happening now, and what we might expect in the future.
Perfect. So we're going to get started here. Welcome to the Blind Mike Project. I believe this is our third welcome, but it deserves a third welcome. Very excited to be here. I understand we usually are recording here in the morning, the Blind Mike Project. I am recording in the evening. So cheers to anybody Also watching in the late evening, I have myself a twisted tea here for our first subject. Jerry's gotten me turned on to him recently. They call him getting twisted, I guess. But our first subject today is actually, like we've already talked about, Jimmy Norton. Now, he has a new relationship and a new marriage. Actually, not as new as you might think. Apparently, they've been married for over a year now. Interesting thing, I wanted to cover a little bit about what people might not know about how long this has been going on, where this all started, and then he had gone on, him and Nikki, Jim Norton and Nikki. Jim and Nikki went on Whitney Cummings' podcast this week, comedian Whitney Cummings, and talked a lot about the things that we didn't know about already. They didn't talk about some things that we do know, though, which was interesting. So a few fun facts about this, a lot of you might not know. This relationship actually started in 2016. They met at the first time in 2017 during Jim Norton's European tour. He visited and met in person there. With just a little bit of research, you can find that Nikki Norton is actually an adult actress, an adult film actress. Now, I'll be honest, the reason we're doing this section first today is because I find a lot of this subject pretty gross. Not a fan of PDA, and we get a lot of that in this segment today. As an adult film actress, Nikki Norton's name was Princess Elena. And I'd be interested, if not, we would get in any trouble here if I showed any pictures here. But why don't we go ahead and just pull up. So we'll pull up right. No way we're going to get any of those images without needing to censor some things. So probably a little too risque there. But she was in fact an adult film actress named Princess Elena. And we're going to be using that in the future here. We have a lot of fact checks we need to catch up on. Why don't we start where everybody first started following this story, their marriage announcement. This is something I'm sure a lot of you had already seen here.
I'm recording.
Okay.
Just pull around me for a second.
Nick, please. Give me 1 second.
Like, this is literally why women don't get dressed up for their husband. Literally because they don't fucking care.
That's not true.
Like, ladies, Nick, I get it. Men don't fucking care.
That's not true.
They really don't in the end of the day.
That's bullshit.
They really don't give a shit.
Nick.
This is real. I didn't script this video.
I know it's not a script.
So already, they seem to be having a rough patch. I'm not exactly sure. Some people have speculated that this is all in an effort to create a reality show. And we're going to look at some of what they consider a reality show and see if that's something you might expect to see on TLC here. So, of course, at first you see this and you think, oh, is he just doing a new character? In fact, you watch some of this and it leaves you wondering, maybe it's just an editing trick and Jim Norton's actually playing Nikki Norton.
They don't care. Men don't give a fuck.
When you see them side by side, though, you very quickly find out they are certainly not the same person. A large size discrepancy there. But Jim Norton went ahead and went on Whitney Cummings' podcast this week with Nikki Norton, and they talked about a lot of things that people have been wondering. All right, Whitney Cummings show with Jim and Nikki Norton. Very exciting. Now, I personally have never watched this podcast. It was very interesting. Whitney Cummings, I've never met as a comedian, so it'd be interesting to catch up on here. I noticed, now I've caught on to a little bit, she has been in the news recently. Apparently, she had a new stand-up special or a new thing coming out there. And she has received some pushback for apparently being what they call transphobic, which is a little strange. A lot of people talking about that she's been throwing women under the bus. So it's an interesting time for this interview. Let's jump to our first timestamp here. We have at about a minute and 20 here. They start talking about these wild thumbnails.
You're not going to lose custody of your kids if you go watch it. It's a totally different site. of.tv/Whitney. Enjoy that. Now enjoy
Always
Jim
promoting.
Norton
I guess that's that special that's coming out here.
Big news. Jim Norton's married.
It's also embarrassing. That's a very embarrassing
Yes.
thumbnail.
And marriage is always a good news. You know, I don't want to disparage that at all, but of course it is a little strange. Now, as we see throughout this podcast, they are completely acknowledging it is a trans marriage. I understand there was some debate of whether or not it might have been a prank or it might actually be a woman. I'm not sure if we'll get in a little trouble for that, but let's go ahead and continue. Of course, they start by talking about these strange thumbnails. So let's hear a little of Jim's explanation on how he came up with these bizarre thumbnails.
It's kind of a goof. We're
You're
making
doing
fun
the
of.
most.
Yeah.
You are doing the most.
Yes.
But we know. I
The
know.
most.
I kind
Now
of
it is
know
ironic. I believe they call that a soy face.
you're making fun of in a way.
Yeah.
Like I go like, I know the annoying people that I feel like this is mocking.
That's how I normally see his face.
But
And we're off.
oh my god, if I give birth this episode, I'll be so mad at you.
Now I gotta say, it's comments like that kind of gross me out. We see a lot of PDA and a lot of blue humor, you might call it, throughout this podcast. But of course, those thumbnails are what's really getting a lot of people talking, so it's great that they acknowledge it right at the beginning here.
But I know you're used to getting peed on. Are you used to getting afterbirths on?
No. And thank God I'll never have that.
What is that, a turd?
Have you ever had water broken on your face?
No, it's the one thing I haven't fetishized is pregnancy. It's the only thing.
You know what is interesting? I've had more guys ask me out than in my whole life.
When you were pregnant?
Now.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
All right, Whitney, well, we're not up here for you and your pregnancy. Talking with a woman that can't even get pregnant, I'm not sure if that's appropriate. Very untasteful, if you ask me. But I just wanted to touch base quickly on that thumbnail there. Our next timestamp, where is that? We talk a little about their meeting. So now we're going to get to learn about Jim and Nikki meeting together.
You have to be adopted from Africa by a single famous person. I don't know.
And by the way, that's not the big news. Is not that we're married. Like I know that sounds like we're starting a YouTube page, and that's kind of a joke. That's like the first 5-minute promo video.
Right.
Putting a YouTube page together is way more commitment than getting married.
I think so too.
It's so weird to see myself on like Instagram and social media because I was off the grid for literally 5 years.
Yeah.
So now that I'm back on, it's like I met Jim when I was 19.
Wild.
I'm 26 now. It's so weird that.
And that's where we get to confirm that initial timeline that they met in 2016, and I believe he even goes on to confirm it later, and then met in person in 2017. Now you have to wonder though, we didn't do enough research. I'll tell you, looking at these images were very shocking. So we didn't go ahead and do much work to see when she started and ended camming. But of course, we might have to fact check some of this later. Off of the social media though, so finally out and giving an appearance now.
Just now, like 3 weeks ago, we're public.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been together for so long.
Yeah.
And then can I ask you, like, to
Cheers.
see a comedian in love, it makes me hopeful. It makes me a lot of things because I always am like, are we unlovable because of all the stuff that we have said? It like put out there, you know.
Right.
I'm like, is any man ever gonna want to sign up for that? Google me one time and they'll just never get an erection again. So it's like, you know, were you
Right. I mean, I'll
nervous
tell you,
after
this
you
whole
saw all
conversation, very gross to me. Why don't we go to our next timestamp? Of course, she just confirms that they've been together for that long. Jim Norton gets into it a little more right here.
No one to refer myself to, so it's weird.
And then you guys start dating like long distance?
Yeah, we talked for. Here's the reason we're married now is because when we first started talking.
Because you're madly in love.
I mean,
Right.
that would be I guess, but it was more like I wasn't going to lose this battle. I'm like, it was a.
We get comments all the time saying that I have an issue interrupting people. Whitney can't make it through 3 sentences without cutting either of these guests off. Although, to be fair, I've not had. That's not even true. I've had multiple guests on the show. Can't even fault myself there.
5-year long road, and we started talking at the very end of 2016, and I didn't meet her until May of 2017. So we were talking for 7 months before we were face to face.
On the phone?
On the phone, FaceTime.
Every single day. He would FaceTime me,
Yeah.
Skype me.
And I only booked gigs in Norway.
I
was
literally would rather you pee on me than FaceTime me.
well, they're not mutually exclusive.
This is
Right, Whitney? Well, you're talking to the wrong person there. And then moving on, we continue this clip where Nikki confirms that story.
Okay, so you guys are like connecting emotionally.
Yeah, it forced me to like didn't know Nikki as a person. And Bill Burr was always on me. He's like, dude, you got to go overseas, and I would never do it. But I'm like, I'm gonna book gigs. I'll book.
So Bill Burr has known about this, kept his mouth shut the entire time. I wonder if he had anything interesting to say after the fact here. We'd have to go back and look at that Instagram. I didn't see any of his comments. He's still keeping quiet. I wonder how he feels.
Oslo, I'll book Antwerp, I'll book
Yeah, that's why I first
Amsterdam.
met Jim was in Oslo when he did his European tour. And while he was on it, he was going to Amsterdam like a week after Norway.
Yeah.
And he was going to fly me out, and I missed my flight. But then the next day, you got me another flight.
Yeah.
So you hadn't fully transitioned by then?
Oh, yeah.
Still missing flights where we needed a couple more hormones. But that's fascinating to me, I think, because like I do feel like long distance.
All right, Whitney. Well, we're not here to hear about your opinion of the situation. So Nikki confirms that the timeline is correct. Nowhere in this video are we going to hear any talk about the camming, and I think that that's going to be the main question that people are going to be asking themselves there. We do have an odd cut, and you have to wonder if it came up during this part of the conversation. Jump to this odd cut here. Keep an eye on it.
It was
attached.
a bizarre time. It was a crazy time.
It was crazy.
Life was just difficult. It's
Cuts
we
and a
had
cut.
something in Norway
So we have to
called
wonder,
antelope.
what could they possibly be cutting out there? Is she talking about her cam experience and how many other men might be trying to fly her to different locations at the same time? You'd have to wonder. That would be the interesting part of the story, if you ask me. And lastly, just a couple laying the groundwork on this story. They also confirmed that they've actually been married for over a year.
Pay that much taxes. Why would you need to do that?
It hasn't translated into our marriage. Don't feel better than other people. Believe me, I would love it. She found Macy's. She's like, I love Macy's. I'm like, every husband wants to hear I love Macy's.
No.
One thing you also notice about Whitney Cummings' podcast, now we are only 10 minutes in, and that's very common, but for a comedian that talks so much about censorship, censors every little swear word through this entire podcast.
Bergdorf. I love it. It's great. I'm living the life. First, when I came here, I was like, oh, Macy's is beautiful. And then I discovered Saks and Bergdorf, and we share credit. It's
you
just
gotta go back on
amazing.
tour,
I
Jen.
love
I know.
being married.
We got to get this YouTube channel up and running.
I gave her a credit card. Like, I can't
Oh.
believe my life is here. I'm a married man. Sometimes I'll say those words. I'm married.
Married?
And it doesn't feel like.
For how long?
It's not real. It doesn't feel real that I've been married for well over a year.
Right.
Jim is really the sweetest person ever.
This is
Like,
correct. We all do know this, but I'm curious, like what
Well over a year. So a fascinating fact. This whole podcast is riddled with fascinating facts. They're not necessarily the ones that I think you were all hoping for, though. Right before we skip way ahead, now a lot of this conversation is a lot about the trans conversation. And of course, that's not our focus today, but we have a quick fact check that we need to call Nikki Norton on here. Fact checking Nikki Norton.
kind of even more because
Yeah.
it's kind of just like punk rock.
I love it. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that and actually meaning it, but I really love being married. Like, I don't want anything else. This
I
is
love
it.
not having a job and being a housewife too.
Yeah, we look at it for different.
No, but I have to say, I've never had a job. And no, literally, I've never had a job. I'm not trying to make myself this person of weird.
Well, I just want to give a quick fact check here, and then we'll let Nikki Norton finish. Not to cut her off, but certainly a lot of people would consider camming a job.
Spectacle, but I've never had a job, and I love living with Jim.
No,
He's
but-
a very manic person. So whenever he gets home from radio, I love waking up early now.
Yeah.
Which I never did before, but he
Right.
has a schedule now. So when he wakes up and go to work, the first thing I do, wake up, have the apartment to myself. Coffee, just
Living the dream. So it's great to hear. I've mentioned this a lot about this camming thing. I do want to get this out here. I'm not, of course, disparaging any cam. I'm not sure if Blind Mike would appreciate me getting too deep into that conversation, but I assure you, I am not anti-camming.
Cookies and all that, and it doesn't affect her at all.
I have never complained about how Jim looks.
She doesn't, no.
I've never told him, look, you have to change. You gotta
No.
go to the gym. I never tell him that.
Never. She's like,
But
oh, you look
he
cute.
tells me to change all the time.
Oh, let's go.
Be healthy, eat a little better.
Yeah, I want her to be healthy. Not, I don't say lose weight, but, I'm like,
I'm
good for your
not
heart.
unhealthy. If I have a cookie, I'm not healthy.
Well, that's just love. I think when you love someone, I think for like people like us, like, I didn't receive love in a healthy way.
Yeah.
I didn't have parents that,
Right,
showed
and
me how to
more
take care of
about
myself,
Whitney
and
here.
then
I guess
sometimes-
this isn't exactly the clip. I'm not sure what we were trying to pull. It was to prove that she was, in fact, a woman. Maybe just comparing it to something Whitney says there, but not a clip. More of just Whitney going on about herself there. This podcast is riddled with that. Our next clip here, we have to talk about them addressing the trolls. Now, I have a note here, thank you, Jerry, that this is a bit of a longer clip. So why don't we take a quick listen here, addressing the trolls. Now,
necklaces and seasonal jackets for your most stylish friends and family.
one thing I noticed here about these advertisements, it's very strange. I'm not sure why Whitney Cummings decides to take a shower and completely get in a new outfit before doing any of these. So she's in odd lighting and pale and wet. It's very strange the way they do these ads. I wonder if it's good for their numbers at all. You'd have to There must be a reason for it. Ooh, what a face.
Etsy does.
Getting to
Purchase
the end of this ad. Now
handbag.
that's what a lot of these shows do. They put the ads right before a big moment in the show. This is a bit of a longer clip here. Addressing the trolls.
I think that we're this weird couple because of the situation, but honestly, I feel like we're so normal, like anyone else. We're out with friends.
You're one of the healthiest couples I've ever witnessed.
Yeah, we're out with friends. We go to dinners. Like we do everything that normal people do.
It's why we like, because people like when you're in a marriage like ours, which again is
A
very much
marriage
similar to most
like
people's
ours.
marriages.
Now, I of course wouldn't put it on the same boat, but maybe he was just talking to Bill Burr because they both have a marriage that caught everybody by surprise. So I guess now that I rethink it here, it makes sense that he was sharing this information with Billy Burr.
But people are going to assume they know things about it, and that's why we want to
Right.
put stuff out, whether it's YouTube or on Instagram.
On
It's like
Instagram.
if you're going to judge us, watch us, and then come to your own determination based on what you see us doing. I like these two or I hate these two, as opposed to just, oh, this is what this marriage is or this is what it's based on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
You want to have your own record of it so other people aren't telling your story.
Well, Jim, we're watching.
And
Yep.
saying what your life is and what it's about.
Do you feel like you have to change a little bit some of the stuff? Like, are you ever like, you know what, let's keep this part private? Like, I guess I'm like in a situation where I'm a little bit like moving forward in my life. Are there am I going to be able to, is anyone going to want to date me if I air all my dirty laundry?
What is this podcast
I
called?
keep-
Please
like-
help me. I'm Whitney, and I need a hand. I'm not sure. No, this is. I think it's just called the Whitney Cummings Pod. Well, I guess that makes sense though. If you name it just the Whitney Cummings Podcast, going to be a lot of Whitney Cummings talk.
She loves the stuff about our relationship on stage. She's seen it. And again, she's unbreakable. Like she
Yeah.
laughs at it. And I know
I
her.
love it.
She
Me
actually
Uh-oh.
likes it because it's stuff. It's
I love it.
she
If you ever go back to being a guy, let me know.
Yeah. Maybe me and you next.
Yeah, let me know.
Nikki Cummings.
she doesn't mind me talking about our private stuff. There's certain things I wouldn't talk about, like that you wouldn't in any relationship. But it feels so good to be talking about it because I'm very open about my life. So when I wasn't talking about our relationship, it was torture.
I
fucking hated it.
remember that when he was.
Certainly, and that's Jim Norton on addressing the trolls there. I'm sure a lot of people have questioned. A lot of people are leaving strange comments, so good on him to address it in such a face-down way. Of course, like I said, this is followed by a lot of trans talk. But before that, we have the most viral clip of this episode, actually. That's perfect. This was going around on many social medias. Jim Norton, are you gay?
I forgot.
No. I cried.
But by the way, I knew. Like I knew every
Yes.
comedian
Of
knew.
course you
know
knew,
what I
Whitney.
mean?
But
It
your
was-
sister,
What
like,
don't
I just
you know?
forgot. Like it wasn't.
He's such a weird.
Yeah, I mean, I just
You're a
forgot.
weird guy sometimes.
I know. When I told
Yeah.
my parents about Nikki, we had dinner, and I told them like I met this girl, and I told them she's transgender, and then my mother wants to know like, are you gay? Like she, again, it was she didn't care.
But that really is the big question, though. Like, are you gay?
No. I mean, I'm not straight.
But you're definitely not straight.
I mean, I don't. When your dick is out, I don't go boo.
Well, you do, but no voice comes out.
And that's about as much as I can take. But we get the gist there. That's Are You Gay? Jim Norton. The podcast goes on. Like I said, it's a lot of talk about subjects that I don't care for there. 3130. Nikki Trans Talk, an interesting story. Whitney has had some controversy being called a woman hater online. That's an interesting timestamp. Why don't we take a quick look?
Now that has to be like the defining
Yeah.
factor of your identity.
I'm watching these pronouns and stuff. She, her. Like, fine. You know, I think it's bringing the message across. But it's like, if I say that, I just feel like, what? Like, why would I? I just think the whole pronoun thing is crazy. Like, I went to an LGBT convention in Canada actually because I had no friends, so I wanted to make friends, other trans people, and it was the craziest thing. Like, they're all wearing latex pants.
Yeah.
Pink beard. I just couldn't relate.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is not who this is on another level than
Right. Well, very strange. Not sure what to say to that. You know, you'd think I've never been to a trans convention. I guess that's all I have to say on that subject. But that's a little of Jim and Nikki. We have another fact check here that we need to jump into. A quick David Collins fact check.
get a boob job. But you know.
Yeah, they say that sometimes.
You're
Yeah.
Like, I don't do jobs. I was very clear. I do no jobs. Zero kinds
None.
of jobs.
Never
Look at
had
me.
a job.
Again, certainly had a job, I'll tell you. Now, if I went to a different website here and clocked in, I would consider it having a job.
That's my favorite thing.
It's your favorite, Whitney, because it's a lie. Do we have any other timestamps here? A lot of Whitney, right? A lot of Whitney. She told a story about a 14-year-old's birthday party, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. So now we're coming to the end of the podcast. We've skipped through a lot, but like I said, we're only going to be covering the important things that are related to Jim and Nikki there. Now, this is the first podcast that Jim and Nikki have gone on since announcing the whole situation. Let's take a little listen to what Jim thinks about it.
Those
Just do the Ozempic.
Yeah, she's always got
to lose weight.
God, I can't. With
This has been our first interview too. This is really fun.
Oh my God,
The
y'all are the
first
best. I could
time.
talk to you forever.
Love it.
Yeah, it's
so much
So
fun.
happy we're doing
I
this
was,
with you.
it's just like, I don't know. It's really heartwarming. It's giving me so much faith. It's like, I'm going to out you guys for a second for being the cutest.
Aw.
Having a baby shower was really hard for me because it's weird to get attention around something that's not being a performer. Like when you guys get married, it's going to feel weird.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of like, why is everyone so happy for me? I haven't made, I haven't like.
All right, Whitney. And Whitney goes on and on and on. It is a lot of Whitney, but I definitely encourage anybody to check that out. Those are the main hits of that clip then. So it brings us to our next Jim Norton
Burned
subject.
this or
So, of course, they've
something, and you
talked
guys
a
came to
lot
the baby
about. Of course, they've talked a lot about that new YouTube channel that they're going to be starting here. Why don't we take a little listen? Now, I understand a lot of people have already played some of the earlier ones on their show. Here's the channel for their new YouTube. Now, the first thing I noticed here is when you go to their channel, you wonder, oh, the most recent video is only, or the longest video, the first video that they put out there was only 2 weeks ago. But you will notice very quickly this channel was actually created in August. So there has been some prep and some planning here. You wonder maybe they were talking to a studio or something before they decided to go full YouTube. We're going to be taking a quick listen. Uh-oh. Watch out for that lap, dog. We're going to be taking a quick, we're going to look at that song too. Very strange, the projects that we're working on. But they did this vlog for their LA podcast trip that included being over on Whitney Cummings' podcast.
Tomorrow. No, stop. Whitney tomorrow.
So it starts with a cliche coming up sequence, a lot like a TLC show that you might expect to see with something like this. Now, what can you expect when you go to this channel, Jim and Nikki, to watch one of their episodes? I think this sums up pretty quickly what you can expect.
Just come here.
I gotta shave my legs now.
Stop yelling and come here.
Wait, what's going on? Are you kidding? No way. Oh my god.
Do you like that little area?
What the fuck?
They upgraded us to this amazing room.
Oh my god. This
The LA podcast trip.
is literally. Oh my god.
But look, if I feel fat, I can just close this.
Wow. This is the nicest hotel I've ever
How strange is
Guess
this?
what I'm gonna do?
And what audience could they be trying to garner? Now, I understand Jim Norton did so many years of radio. I don't think that his radio audience is what this is going to be targeted at. I don't think that Nikki's former audience is who this is targeted for. You have to wonder.
I am going to
This is the
destroy
prettiest. No, this is what
that.
you're gonna do. Okay, let me do my reel. Wow, this is fucking amazing. So we just checked.
Our next clip here is
In Beverly Hills, actually.
Gonna grab lunch. Smile. Aww.
That was very good food. Do you enjoy it?
Oh, it's so delicious. Is my panty showing? Do it again.
No, your panties are not showing.
this show is so odd. I'm speechless, and it's not very often that I have no words to describe what's happening here, but you just watch this show and you wonder, I watch a lot of these shows too. Whenever I visit my mother, she's always watching shows like Love at First Sight and these type of strange addiction and these TLC shows, and this is not something that I would ever envision her watching. Oh, our next clip here, what does a Norwegian look like with a spray tan? That should be interesting.
Now I'm going to get my spray tan.
Hi.
Let's see how you look with your tan.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
Take a look, ladies and gentlemen.
You didn't go crazy, which is nice. Very nice.
Got my little tan on.
Wow, is anybody else uncomfortable yet? So that was Jim, and I think we're just gonna be moving through some of these clips very quickly. We do have some clips here. So this next clip here is a not safe for work moment. Be careful, everybody. Oh, apparently this is we got quite a freeze frame here. Speaking of not safe for work, but we have a much more not safe for work moment up here, and it leaves you asking, is this a bit of some sort? What is going on here? Where is the joke?
Look at the way your cord is hanging out. Just look at yourself in the mirror. This is because you don't give a shit, and I wasn't going to tell you.
I didn't know it was that bad.
But I told you, this is what it is. And it's hanging out the back.
I fucking hate these mics.
Uh-oh.
Holy fucking shit.
So they're mic'd up the entire
nothing
day.
else we can use in these fucking 1960s retro shits?
Nope. That's all you got.
So where am I supposed to tuck them?
I was trying to, but you got impatient with me, so I just dropped it down
No, I
your
just
pen.
fucking hate these mics.
I hate them too. It's all cordless.
And in many shows, there's a producer behind. A producer might say, hey, why don't you make a tuck joke? Are they coordinating this beforehand? It's very strange. And you notice we're only 5 minutes into this 15 minutes. We're not going to go through this whole episode here, but it is very strange. So the fight continues.
Ruining everything for me.
Well,
I hate them. They suck the fun out of it.
Cordless
suck the fun out of it.
Yeah, I get it. Cordless don't sound as good.
So
though.
here's the balcony, you guys.
Well, that was fun,
so
quick.
excited. Yeah. I'm so...
We're not editing that out, by the way.
So...
Just so you know, we're not editing out your little meltdown, and then you're going to come back and go,
Can you
oh my
just film
God,
me?
you got, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to be a part of it.
So here's the balcony, you guys. With a beautiful Los Angeles...
Open the door.
And you might think that that was going to be labeled as the most uncomfortable moment of the show. We actually have our next clip. We actually have labeled as the most uncomfortable moment of the show. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want me to continue and continue to play? Let's check out the balcony.
Can you back up a little? I don't like it that close to my face.
Of course, let's have a little argument first, and now we're checking out the balcony.
Good. There you go.
With a beautiful
You know,
Los
sometimes
Angeles
big
view
hands
and
can be a
breeze.
fault.
We're right
Why don't you show them here, so downtown
We're right
LA.
by the roof.
Show
You're
them-
touching my mic.
Oh, sorry.
You always touch my mic. What?
Boy, and like I said, you thought that was uncomfortable? This next clip we have labeled here, the most uncomfortable minutes of this show. Why don't we take a quick look?
R2-D2.
That's apple fuzz.
This has to make it. John did not finish his food. Wasteful.
Getting my hair done, and I'm going to be doing Whitney Cummings, getting my fucking hair done. And now Jim is coming to drop me off money. Everyone.
What gets me about this show is the stark change from serious to argumentative to romantic
Now we're gonna go to 10
to
degrees
comedy
and have
flavors.
lunch. Nikki is gonna get her hair done, and she wanted us to go to lunch. Look, R2-D2.
That's apple fuzz.
This has to make it. John did not finish his.
Very uncomfortable. And then we're back into some beauty products here. The changes of tone are very strange, but we're all looking forward to whatever he's got coming up there. Oh, we have one more fact check, it looks like. Why don't we check this last fact check? Do we even continue? We have one more thing here.
I look like a fucking fruit. No.
You are.
Look,
Uh-oh.
This is. I guarantee it's all over the fucking towel. Yeah, of course. The first YouTube video we did.
Do you know how many men would love to have my lipstick on their mouth?
One,
and other
and you marry
places?
Again, you know, and this is our fact check here, because of course, now we've done the research. I can't show too many clips. I think we tried to show one. We're gonna have to end up censoring that. It's a big issue. Certainly, many men are enthralled by this Nikki Norton, or as some might say, Princess Elena. Anyway, not to harp on the fact, but it's strange that they just continue to say such clearly falsifiable sentences there. Lastly, we just want to check out their newest project. Apparently, they're not only doing their YouTube here, they're also putting out music. Now, all of you out there that listen to David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show understand I'm a big fan of song parodies. I think that a song parody is a great way to deliver the news or deliver any topical piece of comedy in a much more palatable form. Why don't we take a little listen to Nikki Norton's song parody?
want a little dog, a sweet little dog.
And that's about as much of that as I can personally take. Now, you see, it is a 2-minute song. I'm not sure. It looks like that my face might be covering it up here. But if you could see, you would see it is a 2-minute song. We're not going to be playing that whole thing. Fun Feliz Navidad song parody there. So, Nikki and Jim, we're certainly looking forward to whatever projects that you have in the future. Sorry that Whitney Cummings was trampling over everything that you guys went on the show to say. We're curious to know what might have been cut from the show. If anybody knows what might have been cut from the show, email me, dc30minutehalfhour at dc30minutehalfhour at gmail.com. We'll be looking forward to reading some of those. And that was our coverage of Jim and Nikki Norton.
And we also got to learn about Chad Zumock this week, somebody that I didn't expect to like so much. Out of all the characters that all of this universe follows, Chad Zumock's the only one doing content giving any pushback, and we really enjoyed some of that. I actually had the opportunity to talk with a comedian that had opened for Chad Zumock years ago, and that was interesting. And we also have some clips from him covering Content House this week.
Chad Zumock, a stand-up comedian in New York, or the New York area. I'm actually not too sure where he hails from. We're going to be talking a little bit about his podcast. I get to learn about him. One thing that struck me, and we're also going to be talking to, I'm actually associated with a comedian that years ago had opened for Chad Zumock, so we're going to get him on the show and talk a little about that and hear about him opening for Chad Zumock, see if there's an interesting story there. But Chad actually struck me as one of the more interesting characters out of everybody that we're talking about today. Many of these characters are ridiculed online by a handful of shows. Chad Zumock, however, is one of the only ones there that decides, hey, I'm going to do a show of a similar format and give some pushback to these haters. So that was an interesting dynamic to run into. Now, we wanted to do a little research on this guy, and we found the best way was just to sign up for his Patreon. And it had me a little nervous. This seems like it must have been written years and years ago, so I hope the guy is doing all right. Of course, he calls himself a mud shark, which is interesting. It'd be a great radio name. I wonder if he has any history. That's probably why I'm finding myself a little fond of him. I'd imagine he sounds so much like a former broadcaster. I wonder if he has any history in radio there. But if you sign up to his Patreon, you get this email back, and it had me a little nervous that this might not be going as well for him as he'd hoped. The email says, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to support my content, comedy, and my Patreon goals. I will continue to provide free content for everyone, and your pledge helps me tremendously getting my content where it needs to be. I'd say it's a little heavy on the word content. That would be my first criticism there. But I'm also finding, of course, this seems to be written at a time where everything was free, because I am finding now a lot of his content is actually behind a paywall, so maybe this needs to be updated. It continues. A majority of what is pledged to you is put right back into what I'm doing. The goal, as Stupid Steel Toe would say, I'm not familiar, he talks a lot about this Steel Toe character, I'm not caught up there. Unfortunately, that wasn't on the list that Blind Mike gave me, so I'm not sure about this Steel Toe, but as Steel Toe might say, is to hire a producer. Is that really what it said? Jerry, that's not you. You sent that to me. Let's start that over. The goal, as Stupid Steel Toe would say, is to hire a producer. Add more programming, build a studio in the back room, and getting it to a point of a like-minded community. You know, one thing I don't like about this Chad Zumock, I can't really show this on screen. He's not a fan of the Oxford comma. I'm a big fan of the Oxford comma. Then he finishes by saying, you are day one supporters, and as time goes on, there will be more rewards for you for that. Thank you so much, Chad, a.k.a. the Z-Man, a.k.a. the Mud Shark. Well, it's interesting, and that's the other thing that has me concerned. Certainly, I am not a day one supporter by his definition. That would be room for a lot of concern here. Like I said, Chad Zumock does a show where he watches other people that make fun of him and other people in that community. He watches their live stream live, which I actually thought was a very interesting format. I'm not sure if I've seen a lot of that where you do a live show and then you're looking for other live shows to base your content. So we're going to take a quick look here at reviewing the content house. So I guess there's a house of people that like to gather, and then they do their podcasts all in the same house together. It's another interesting thing. We're learning so much about how this industry flows. But let's jump straight into the content house review. This Chad Zumock, another person that loves his production value. What an intro this guy's got. We can get rid of your little picture here, Chad. We'll come back to you soon. So we want to hear a little of his intro at the beginning here, and then I think he does a roll call, which we want to do here. That's another fun thing that you could do at the beginning of a live show, I suppose. Oh, in this show, you'll notice that there's some profanity on the screen. This show is called Cumia's Cucks. So, how I understand the show, there is, of course, old radio DJ Anthony Cumia, who is formerly of Opie and Anthony on Sirius XM, and I guess that he runs some sort of broadcasting center today, and all of his employees, Chad Zumock refers to as his cucks. I think that's kind of the premise of the show here, so that just to explain kind of what you're seeing on screen here. And there's that Carl fella. We're going to be talking a little about him later, I think. Again, I had the same criticism of Tom Meyer's intro. Not enough words. I like some words, and you have all this energy going here. You could add a little more. But this is good. That must be a pretty young picture of Chad there. And now what I'm noticing about this intro is actually looping the same image, and it's the same music. So we'll just skip ahead. It's actually, I thought I was more impressed with this. I guess maybe I was a little illusioned. No, I'm disillusioned.
Wow. Welcome, Colt C, Spencer K.
Starts at 5:45. We do a roll call.
In here.
That's a lot of fun. I like a good roll call. I'm not sure if I'm too familiar with
greatest
that.
Comedian. We got Merc Sace. He's new. Sean Daly, Spencer K. McCalla, Jessica Flatcat.
And say what you will about this, it's a very strange format, this roll call, but this is what people are watching these days, so you can't really give them too much, whatever the word is. We want to jump straight into 7 minutes here, because he said something I actually agreed with, I believe.
Lawyer, at first I didn't like him, but now I think he's fucking great. Because he was trolling John, and it's...
Stuttering John.
First, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And then he's trolling John, and I'm just laughing my ass off. I'm like, this guy's hilarious. I didn't realize what he was doing. Hey, speaking of Patreon, like we were talking about it, go sign up to the Patreon, patreon.com/
He wasn't even talking about the Patreon. It's very funny.
/ African-American / Zumock. I want to thank some $100 sponsors. You too could be a $100 sponsor, everybody.
Oh, could we?
You want to promote, plug? You're running for office.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Would you take note of that, Jerry? Maybe we could get a sponsorship on Chad Zumock's show.
It's in Colorado, but you can't. Sign up to my sponsors. You could be one. $100. Ken Mosca, the great Ken Mosca, the great David Chandler, Jared Thompson, Stu John, Twinkle Ho 99. Randy P, Jack, Anthony, Craig T, and Big Papa still holding strong in the month of December.
Well, if those are the promotions, I'm not sure. I don't remember any of those names. Our name mixed in that list wouldn't be helpful at all.
Thank you for your sponsorship. Oh, and SilkCityHotSauce.com, everybody. What are we doing with the Silk City?
$100. He has not gotten to where I agree with this. Jerry, you really messed up these timestamps, I believe. Oh, this is the Christmas special. We've completely botched the timestamps, it appears. Well, that's no problem. We got a little piece of that. That's Chad Zumock's. Let's see. Do we have any other timestamps for this piece? All right. Well, this is falling apart. That's fine. Well, Chad Zumock also had, and we're going to be talking with that comedian here pretty soon anyway. We're just really waiting for that phone call, but we had something else that we could kind of jump into here. This was Chad Zumock also did a Christmas special. Just based on these timestamps, I'm liking Chad Zumock even less. So he did do a Christmas special here, and we have some fun clips from that. It begins around 5:45. Lots of references in this one to people that I don't know, but let's take a little listen to this opening.
Now it's the holiday season. Your faces in here. What's going on? It's the Z-Man.
What's going
The
on,
Shark.
Z-Man? The Shark.
Coming live and direct from Tampa, Florida. Beautiful Tampa, Florida. Oh, the weather. Gorgeous. You notice how Fatty Patty's always using his hands like steel toe? Flipper hands. How are you, everybody? Hit the like button. Thank you so much for coming to the show today. This might be the last Kumia's Cucks ever. I'm just kidding. It'll never stop. They drew first blood, not me.
And that's what he keeps saying, and I'm kind of sympathetic with him. It does seem like he gets more hate than anybody that he could throw around there. But that's interesting, and we couldn't find that timestamp, but he did say that we did have something we wanted to play about. He said, I'm done doing comedy of some sort. I was going to be just taking a step back. He has some shows that he does a few times a year, and then he's focused on his broadcasting. And we thought that was an interesting clip to play. Unfortunately, we've kind of dropped the ball on that. But here, we're going to get to this part where, like I said, he talks a lot on this show about people that I don't care or know of. But we do have a quick timestamp here from...
We're going to be great. We're going to have good times. And the best part about this show... You know what the best part about this show is? No Ray DeVito. Yes. Ray DeVito free.
And that's actually, and I was very excited when he said this at the beginning of the show because I'm not familiar with this Ray DeVito. I want to catch up on Chad Zumock and maybe he could interact with characters that I'm somewhat familiar with. Unfortunately, he says no Ray DeVito. He talks about this Ray DeVito character for 28 minutes in the show. Luckily, we get to a great impression later, and this is really what I wanted to talk about Chad Zumock. Some people really have a lot of negative things to say about Chad Zumock's impressions. I think he's a hell of an impressionist, if I do say so.
This is the one show Ray DeVito can't do. I'm doing it. I'm doing a very good service for a lot of people out there, a lot of hardworking individuals this holiday season. A lot of people who come together in this community,
right.
They donate, they buy the memberships, open up your...
And that's all I agreed with. You know, a lot of people like to take vacations around this time of year. Chad Zumock, somebody still burning the midnight oil, giving something back to his audience. That's perfect. So let's jump ahead and jump into our first Chad Zumock impression here. About 15 minutes in, we have a Chad Zumock Joe Rogan impression. This comes by pretty quickly, so make sure you're paying attention.
I swear he went live. In all seriousness, happy holidays to the Ant-Man. Anthony Cumia. Do you think Kevin Brennan likes Anthony Cumia? Happy holidays to Carl.
What a great Joe Rogan that is. I've never heard such a great Joe Rogan. A lot of people are doing Joe Rogan impressions these days, but I think he really nailed it there. I'm not sure really the context on that, but I did catch that and we wanted to take note. Perfect. So I don't think there's really much we want to talk about on Chad Zumock. On the note of doing an impression, we'll go ahead and play a comparison here. So, but before that, we do have one note here that just says the only thing that I need to know about Chad Zumock.
Gino is gonna hurt. I had to deal with that guy for 2 weeks behind the scenes. I go, this guy's fucking crazy. But Ray just uses everyone. Don't make this. Hey guys, he's my buddy. I love him. I love everybody. Don't get it twisted. He doesn't love everybody. You're not his friend. You're not his buddy. He uses and manipulates. That's why I cut Ray out. I see what he's all about.
Right. So maybe it wasn't about Chad Zumock. Maybe we messed up that note. It was about Ray DeVito, which no, I know. Maybe that's just somebody that we won't try to work with in the future. You know, you hear that he's going on all these shows. Maybe you think maybe we should have him on a guest on our show. But if Chad Zumock says he's not to be trusted, then maybe we'll take his word for it. Now, we've talked a lot about here today, in general, I think we've mentioned impressions a lot. I'm a big fan of impressions. I do a heck of a Jimmy Fallon. Won't see that today. But Chad Zumock, just like a great Joe Rogan, he also does a very funny impression of that Carl figure that we had talked about earlier. It was Stuttering John. He talks about Stuttering John often. He does a show called Who Are These Podcasts? and I think we've mentioned that with a few of our guests before. But Chad Zumock does what a unique impression, too. Nobody in the world is doing an impression of this guy, and the people making fun of Chad Zumock don't agree that it's a great impression. So we went ahead and pulled those clips here. Let's take a little listen to that comparison right side by side. So first we're going to be listening to Carl from Who Are the Podcasts, and then we'll listen to Chad Zumock's impression, and we'll really get an unbiased take on try to analyze here. Is it a good impression or is it not?
Chad, you're not going to be welcome there. And when that happens, please don't shoot up the place. if you can help it. We'd really appreciate that.
Where she invites all the influencers, all the dorks, like Carl. Oh my God, I can't believe I got invited back to Chrissy's content house. Oh my God, Chad's a fucking idiot. Can I bring Cardiff? Anyways.
Another shout out to the great Cardiff Electric there. I'm surprised that's somebody that's involved in so many different worlds. It's very surprising to see. But that was our little comparison of Chad and that Carl figure. I thought he does a great impression of Carl. Is that really all we wanted to talk about Chad Zumock here? Well, that's fine. I think that wraps it up then, Jerry. We can just move on from Chad Zumock. That's no problem. And then we have our little call in here. We'll talk to Jameson Cox about opening for Chad Zumock at Penguins Comedy Club in Cedar Rapids. Maybe we'll even get into my Sam Talent story later. I've been thinking of that, but that's great. That's Chad Zumock. So right now I'm joined with Jameson Cox, former friend of the show that we've had on the show. I believe it was episode 7 of David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show. Might be episode 6 or episode 5. I'm not exactly sure. But he actually, in the past, has opened for Chad Zumock, and we have him on the line right here. Can you hear me, Jameson?
I can. I'd like to think I'm still friends of the show.
Of course, yeah, a great former friend of the show. And that's great. And you've been over to New York there. Jameson Cox is somebody that I met in Iowa, and one of the first. He's actually somebody that was big in my ear about starting and getting back on the air and starting some sort of internet show. But he also has told me once that he had the opportunity to open for Chad Zumock, which is who we've been talking about today. Chad Zumock. Do you remember opening for Chad Zumock?
Yeah. I kinda, yeah.
Now, this guy's got a reputation for being a bit of a drunk and a bit of an antagonizer. Do you remember anything about that?
I don't remember feeling antagonized at all. And as far as being a drunk, he seemed pretty. I think I saw him have a couple beers. I don't know if I'd call him a drunk.
Right. Well, he's somebody that gets a lot of online hate. I think there are full shows developed just about reacting to his content. Now, Chad Zumock is somebody that they call the mud shark because he goes around flinging so much mud at other comedians. Do you have any recollection of any of that?
He was pretty nice to me. I mean, the way I remember it, he was a rather sweet guy. He came in, told the staff thank you. You know, I don't know what kind of portrait you're painting of him.
Is that right? Well, this is some of the things that I've caught up on here. Of course, a lot of people talk about this Chad Zumock fella. So let's build a bit of a timeline here. When was this? So I understand it was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, that you had the opportunity to open for him. Is that right?
Yep, at Penguins Comedy Club in Cedar Rapids. This was, early 2018.
Early 2018. So before a lot of the controversies that have come up there with Chad Zumock, what are some of the other people that you've opened for?
Oh, I've opened for Andy Kindler, Chris Redd, Sam Talent.
Sam Talent. I actually think we might talk a little bit about that Sam Talent story. Of course, I was there kind of in the background, but I remember so many people leaving. I have a bit of a Sam Talent story that maybe I'll be telling on the show today. But of course, we're talking about Chad Zumock.
Yes, we are, yeah. And, I guess maybe 2018 was the last of the good years for him. I don't know what happened to him after that show.
I'm not sure. He's somebody that I've been listening to and actually getting more and more impressed the more that I listen. Now, so many of these people are targets by other podcasts that like to make fun of them. Chad Zumock's one of these only people that actually goes back and creates a show shooting back at these podcasts. He's actually kind of impressed me.
That doesn't sound like mud slinging at all. That sounds like deflecting mud back. I mean, you're making this guy sound like a hero to me. I like him.
He's really grown on me over this last week of learning about him.
Yeah, he seems like a great guy. I mean, like I said, that when I met him, he came in very professional, very, straight-laced guy. I mean, I did see him have a couple beers. I don't remember being anything crazy, but yeah.
Certainly. Well, we were hoping for a more interesting story about maybe if he was rude to somebody or if he got back and forth with the audience in any way.
Oh, well, there was a little confusion with his bill at the end of the night.
Really?
Yeah, he went to go pay the tab, and they said, you're a comic, your drinks are free, and he was very shocked by that. And
is that right? He strikes me as somebody that would kind of expect things to be free.
He seemed happy about it. I mean, he tipped the bartender well. I gotta tell you, he's a pretty sweet guy.
Well, Jameson, so this interview here that we're doing, it's going to be ending up on the Blind Mike Project YouTube
big fan.
channel.
Love Blind Mike.
Is that right?
Yeah. He's the guy he can't see, and his name's Mike. I love that.
Well, a lot of people actually get confused. There's a gay Blind Mike that's in the New York area. Well, I suppose Blind Mike you might consider in the New York area.
That's who I'm thinking of, Gay Blind Mike. I'm a big fan of Gay Blind Mike.
You're in the New York area. Have you seen Chad Zumock around more recently?
No, I can't say that I have. I'm mainly at open mics, and I think his career's a little, he's headlining Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So
certainly. Well, actually, one of the clips that we listened to today is him talking about how he's given up on a lot of things, and he's just happy doing booked shows and whatever he can get, and then he's just going to be streaming for his audience. But that's right, you might not see him at those open mics, but he's somebody that's been doing it for so long, I'm sure he's a real professional about it.
He's earned his stripes, and from what I saw, he killed in Iowa. So I mean, I would be surprised to find out he was doing open mics. I mean, I assumed he probably had a pretty full calendar.
I'll tell you, we expected that you would have some sort of outrageous story about this Chad Zumock, and you wouldn't be the first too. People love to follow him at his shows and come back and share with these other podcasts what kind of acts they had.
A lot of people like to hate on success. So what you might be seeing is his success and people being jealous. Is that maybe a little bit of what's going on in your, because you do a little stand up, and maybe you kind of wish you were at his level. So you're looking for dirt to maybe try to bring down the king.
Well, I wouldn't say that that's me necessarily. In fact, my eyes have kind of been opened, especially even talking to you about this Chad Zumock. But no, a lot of people definitely, maybe it is something like that, because he's opened for great comedians. I can't even think of some of the, but I was looking through some of his credits, and I certainly wasn't unimpressed.
I can tell you a great story about another comic. I don't know if you want me to say his name, but it's another guy I opened for.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. If you have a story, maybe that's something. Maybe we'll just change. Maybe we'll just drop the Chad Zumock segment that we recorded here, and then we can talk about that more interesting comedian. Because, like I said, I've only really had positive things to say at this point about Chad Zumock.
I got nothing but good things to say about. I mean, I can lie to you and tell you a story that isn't true about him. Now, you want me to pretend that this other story is Chad Zumock? That would be fun.
So who is this comedian? Now, you've worked with Chad Zumock. You've worked with so many other. Chad Zumock doesn't sound like it would be even on your top 10 list of comedians that you would not want to work with again in the future.
I'd love to work with him again. Are you kidding me?
I've tried to reach
Chad,
out to
if you're listening, reach out.
I hope that he is listening. Chad Zumock, actually, we have reached out to you before. We tried to get him as a guest on David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show. He has so many trolls bugging him all the time, though. I'm sure he's just concerned that it was some sort of gag. But with your connection, I tried to tell him, of course, that you had opened for him in the past, and we had this connection already, but I think he's just kind of let that be ignored.
Hey, he's probably a little high up on the food chain to do your show, I think, David.
Well, possibly. We were just talking about how Bob Levy found a way to get me off of potentially being a guest on his show, so, I'm not sure. Maybe he was worried that I might be stealing some of the spotlight, but I still don't think that's any concern there. I imagine that it just got unread.
Yeah, you're kicking up a lot of dust in the podcast world, so.
Well, that's nice of you to say. Who was this comedian that you had such a terrible story about?
Well, I don't know if I want to say his name, but how about I tell you the story and then you see if you can guess?
Okay. Is it Brendan Schaub? Because I know that I would hate to hear you bad-mouthing. I know when you were a guest on David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show, you only had good things to say about Brendan Schaub. We played a game, and you had to guess which joke was joke, and you knew exactly which was which.
Big fan of Schaub. Probably one of the top 10 working comedians in the game today.
Do you think that opinion is going to kind of cause a rift in what people think about what you've already said about Chad Zumock? A lot of people have negative things to say about Brendan Schaub, although I believe that opinion has kind of changed recently.
Here's the thing, my opinion on Schaub, we don't matter. We don't matter, B. Our opinions don't matter. I just try to stay focused. I don't matter. I one of my side hustles, I work the kitchen at Chang's, PF Chang's. I'm just trying to put out some good tasty orange chicken dishes. Okay?
Right.
That's
So
what
who
I
was
stay
this
focused on.
comedian that was so outrageous?
Well, so the story is he's a pretty big name, pretty famous guy, famous for movies. He famous for a Marvel movie, actually. Was a side character in a Marvel movie.
Jim
That's
Norton.
I don't believe Jim Norton was in a Marvel movie.
Jim Norton was the bus driver in Spider-Man 2. We've actually just got done talking about him also, his new relationship, Jim and Nikki Norton.
Good for Jim. No, that's not the. I won't say the movie because it's a dead giveaway. But he was a side character in a Marvel movie, and he came in for a one-nighter, 2 shows, and he didn't have any merch, so he went to the local Hot Topic and bought all the flat brim hats that were branded with the Marvel movie he was in to sell and sign to fans.
Wow. Well, that's a good idea.
That's a fun one. He brought a tuba with him and brought it on stage. Never played it once. Didn't even take it out of the case.
Well, that's very strange. I would be worried that they
Very
were going to follow
strange.
you around with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think I could follow a tuba act. That'd be tough. But the story that's a little controversial, I guess, is while he was on stage, he talked about how he doesn't drink anymore. And he kept drinking out of a kombucha bottle on stage. And I noticed progressively throughout the night, he was getting looser and looser. By the end of the second show, he was hardly standing up doing the meet and greet. And I'm like, wow, he really gave it all on stage. He's got no energy left. Poor guy can't even stay upright. And then I go back into the green room afterwards, and I noticed he was finishing off a bottle of vodka that he was pouring into the kombucha.
Wow. Well,
So
that
the
is interesting.
kombucha
I
was all
understand
vodka.
you being a New York comedian over there, especially a little newer to that area, you might not want to burn any bridges.
I don't want to burn any bridges, man. I'm just here trying to have a good time.
But if anybody can guess who that comedian might be, make sure you email me, dc30minutehalfhour@gmail.com.
Call it in.
Well, that was great, Jameson Cox. Thanks so much for your Chad Zumach story. I'm sorry it wasn't as inflammatory as some of the viewers might have hoped for, but it's nice that you had such a good experience with him.
Nothing but good things to say about Mr. Zumach.
Were you that person in the story?
Of getting sober?
With a kombucha bottle. Was that you?
No, I wasn't in Deadpool.
I see. Well, that's great.
Ooh, that's the hint. I just gave it away.
What an enlightening conversation that we've had here.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I can't tell you anything about Chad Zumach. Sorry to ruin your bit, but Donnie Baker, class act. Chad Zumach really could go either way.
Well, that's great. This will just pair up well. I'll go ahead and tell my Sam Talent story, and it will just be a bit of a corner that we'll have here breaking things up. We love a little interstitial to break things up here at David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show. Well, that's great. Jameson Cox, do you have anything to promote?
No, man. Follow me on Instagram, Jameson Cox Comedy. I'm thinking about quitting comedy anyway, so but follow me on there. See if you can convince me to stick around.
Well, that's too bad. In New York, just drains people. I've heard that. I think that's a saying. But thanks so much, Jameson.
If you can
Cox,
make it there,
everybody.
you can make it anywhere.
That's what they say.
And I don't think I can.
And finally, we wanted to take a look at Matt Rife. Matt Rife can't avoid controversy this month, it seems, and we had wanted to follow up on his new polygamy scandal.
Perfect. That's great. And only one last subject to cover today. One thing they don't warn you, this is a very exhausting thing to be going through, but I'm glad that we have only one left. This is a fun show, though. Thanks again, Blind Mike, for having me guest host today. Very strange. We're going to be talking a little about this Matt Rife again. Can't stop talking about this Matt Rife and his constant controversies. That was actually on the Blind Mike Project a few weeks ago. We talked about when his special came out and some of the backlash that he got from that. Now, I'm a big fan of Matt. I've been keeping up with him at least. You could say I'm a above average fan. But I must watch almost every podcast that he appears on. And months ago, I had caught him on this canceled podcast. And there was one moment in particular that kind of stood out to me. Now, Jerry and I have been taking bets. As much as I love this Matt Rife's comedy, I have been a little suspicious, especially since seeing this. I thought rape allegations or something was coming out. Of course, the big story this week is a polygamy scandal that he was apparently, at some points, he was dating, 10 or 15 women at one point. And now they're all in a group chat out to get him. So that's kind of what we're following. And we're going to see what the outcome of that really is. Bit of a womanizer, it turns out. Who would have guessed? Like I said, I've been watching this kind of coming down the pike, or not sure exactly what to expect, but this was the first sign, to me at least, that something was a little up here. So the whole time in this show that he's appearing on, he was on the canceled podcast 6 months ago now. And you can imagine the views this is getting today. But he's on this canceled podcast, and it's all moving very comfortably through the entire show until about 47 minutes in, when they ask him about sleeping with fans, and then things get a little different. And it starts by taking questions from the fans. Always a dangerous maneuver there. Joe Matarese knows.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was trying to go through the fucking fan questions, and it's
Go for
so
it.
no
Sorry.
that was like literally
That was one of them?
That was one of them.
That's hilarious.
And no, but it's 90% things that I'm physically just not inclined to ask you. You know what I mean?
You can ask it, I can pass.
Like, no, you would pass for sure.
Now, we're watching this, and we're focusing on this podcast in particular, and we're going to get into this question, but we're going to pause on these two women here, because these two women are getting credit for actually canceling Matt Rife here and kind of bringing this all to light. Now, this woman on the left is named Brooke Schoenfield, Schoenfield, something like that, and she is a YouTuber and a model of some sort, I believe. And this woman on the right, I don't really remember. I'm kind of familiar. There was some stories 10 years ago or something. She said an N-word or something like that, and I'm not really sure. But she's also a YouTuber, and they have this podcast, The Canceled Podcast.
Yeah, you'd pass.
Fire
but
away.
a lot of people want to know if you've ever fucked a fan. Yeah. Would you ever?
Gets
fuck
a little
fan? Have you ever
uncomfortable.
dated a
It's the
fan?
first time in this whole show that
I
he's
don't
gotten
think so.
any uncomfortable.
I mean, it's. I don't know.
You're in
I don't
Atlanta,
really-
Georgia. You've been there for 3 nights.
He's
You're
thinking,
fucked.
he's been shooting at the hip. He's been operating all on instinct. And now his instinct is saying, maybe I should pull back a little bit and think about my answer.
First of all, that
So
would never
unhappy.
happen.
Not-
Okay,
not Atlanta,
if
of all
they'll
places.
drive me out of Atlanta, I'll fuck whoever. Absolutely, anybody.
Yeah.
I don't.
Really?
That's a weird question because I don't really consider people like fans. Like just because you come
Oh,
to a
don't
show
get
doesn't
all
mean you're
fucking
like
weird and humble on this. Answer the
no,
fucking
because
question.
like you're still a fucking person. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't.
Right.
Unless you're coming up to me and you're like, oh my god, oh my
Yeah.
god, like that. That's like fan energy.
Energy.
You know what I mean?
But like
so,
an
no.
Doesn't know what a fan is. It's a very suspicious answer. It certainly lets you know that something's going on here. So that was the first key to me, at least, that something might have been going up. Who would have guessed it would have turned in what it turned into here? Let's jump to our next clip. Our next clip is a week before they really break open this group chat scandal and this polygamy scandal. You know what this reminded me of? This reminded me of Chris D'Elia's sex ring, the more I heard about it here. But the week before even that show, they were still somewhat trying to defend him and what was going on and some of his backlash here.
I damn near passed out.
Even while trying to defend him, though, they couldn't make the same criticism. They couldn't help but make the same criticism that I and many other people have made, that this is not somebody that's able to successfully avoid the trolls. Let's take a little listen to this clip where they talk about his hypocrisy.
Gone down if he were actually the one, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Matt Rife commented on his TikTok and was like, lying about like medical shit is illegal, blah, blah, blah. And all the comments back to Matt Rife were like, so now who can take a joke?
one thing about Matt Rife is he is going to fight with somebody in a comment section.
Right.
And I get it.
Yeah.
I do it and I have to stop myself from doing it because it's like, it's so hard because I always look back on it and I'm like, why the fuck did you say that? That's so embarrassing. But in the moment, it's like, it's so hard to see people like.
But you never once have had your brand be like, I'm not going to fight with you in a comment section. You know,
That's
like,
a good point.
Like the way you are on this podcast, the way you are in life, you give, I'm going to fight with you in a comment
100%.
section. Like he's online saying like, I don't give a fuck about what anyone says about me. And then you're fighting in a comment section. It's
Right.
like the negating what.
He's ending his special saying, I guess I only do crowd work, and then dropping the mic, opening the floodgates of people to make fun of him online. It's very much not building your brand on it. I think that's a well said point.
You directly want your brand to be, I think, is what's hurting.
It is kind of hard to have this whole thing about like, it's all a joke. It's all a joke.
Yeah. And then I would just love to see him double down and I guess joke on this. You know what I mean? And
He
then-
is. Did you see his story?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts?
The helmets.
They're still
I
still
thought-
talking about this helmet situation, and in fact, this whole podcast, and they have to come back the next week and say, I'm so sorry that we were defending him. And let's go ahead and just jump into that next week's clip here, and this is really the big story. Now, a lot of people have kind of pulled back. Apparently, they've been talking and referring to Matt Rife as DC Guy. So if you go back and listen to some of their older episodes, you're going to find them mentioning DC Guy Now people are pulling clips and finding, oh, they're talking about Matt Rife. Let's pull those clips. So we're not really going to go over some of those examples. But let's just jump to the meat of the bones here. Now that we've had a little warm-up, a little appetizer, we'll jump into exactly what caused this week's Matt Rife controversy. Now take a quick note here. This is about 35 minutes into the show, so they've had to do a lot of build-up and a lot of warming up to get into this before they're prepared to talk about the subject. We'll jump about 35 minutes into the show, and I think we'll just let it ride for a little bit.
I'm seeing blue and black right now.
I'm seeing white and gold right now. We don't need to do that
at all. Looks like we're tired.
Like this was a high podcast.
Okay, well, we were just talking about Trisha.
The boots come down.
I've been watching all her recent episodes. Trisha has been going in on Matt Rife, I think, harder than maybe anybody.
Oh, you're ready.
And it's hilarious. Not hilarious, but...
Oh, you're ready.
And you can see this woman on the right, this Tana woman, is gearing up. She's saying, oh, things are coming. You could see the excitement on her face. You wonder, oh, well, what's happening?
She's probably going to watch last week's episode. And
News
be like,
in the making.
Okay, relax.
I can't.
It's not that crazy. I just I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, God, I wonder if she sees that and she's like disappointed in me because I'm like,
referring to the weeks before episode.
Forever.
Okay.
No, I'm not disappointed in you. I just hate holding shit in. Obviously, you know, like I'm always like, leave this in, put it in, like whatever. And if you go back and watch the Matt Rife episode, you can just feel my disdain.
There's a difference,
And
definitely.
we could, and I would encourage everybody, like I've said, I watched that before, and you could see some things were a little off, but he was very loose until that question came, and Tana was the one really pushing it, so you knew she was trying to get something out of it.
Him and my energy toward him because I thought the world of him. I'm getting a little bit of backlash. Okay, we both kind of are, honestly, for being like a little bit of like Matt Rife apologists on the last episode.
And I never want to be that. I can't stress this enough. But at the end of the day, you're my best friend. And if you want to protect something, I'm like me saying how I truly feel about him in this situation would go against what you wanted.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So honestly, thanks for backing me up on that. But
and backing her up, defending Matt Rife. We're just going to skip a little ahead here. Of course, they talk about this for about 8 minutes, so we're just trying to hit the main beats.
And so that's what I expected of him. And so like obviously, like when I got to know him and stuff, I was like, okay, wait, that's not him at all.
Yeah, and at the time he was just blowing up and hot and funny. Like there wasn't as many bad things. Like I completely see why you would do it. I would do it.
Yeah, and so for context, Mr. DC is Matt Rife. Mr. DC.
Right,
yeah.
and here's the big
I had
reveal.
My ideas of him, and then when I got to know him, I
opening up
really
the floodgates for
decided,
people
like,
to come
that
look
is
at the
not
old
who he
shows.
is.
What were they talking about? Matt
Way
Rife.
better person than I would have thought. You know what I mean? Matt, I wouldn't say he was like my ex or anything because it wasn't like this serious relationship, but like it was more like I wasn't just hooking up with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was very.
You liked him.
Yeah, I really liked him, and his like even more so from his end, he was the one who was initiating the conversations that were like.
Yeah.
It's very sad, and that's the same things you were hearing about these Chris D'Elia stories. And then a lot of comparisons there. We'll jump a little further ahead.
Remember, you had come with me to his show at the Laugh Factory, and like I had just flown across the country to go spend time with him and see all his shows and whatever.
Certainly, well, you're getting to know each other,
and like just literally was like not blowing me off, but just didn't really like.
Yeah, and like keep in mind you guys are next door neighbors.
Yeah, he lived.
So it was like very like it's like you're home and I could throw a rock through your window.
It's too bad, and something's wrong. She's getting the hint.
My frustration. I'm like, how embarrassing that I just went like and did all of this, and then you come back and you can't even hardly spend time with me. It happened a couple times. He had come to LA a couple times where it was like you would go to dinner like once or something, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, just strange. So we went to the show at the Laugh Factory that night. You saw him. He came, said hi, whatever, and he's like, "Okay, babe, like I'll see you after the show."
I'm so happy,
babe.
Doing this. I can express to you the serotonin.
Listen, you know what? Whatever.
I'm so proud of you.
He tells me like, "Okay, like I'll see you after the show. I'll be over as soon as I'm done. Whatever." I stay up.
She gets left hanging. She starts getting frustrated. Things are clearly going on. We'll move on. I'm having Whitney flashbacks.
And that was when like the conversation happened where he was just like, I'm so sorry, but I do not have time. Like, I don't have time.
Relationship.
Like, no, I don't have time for the relationship. Like, I just don't. And he's like, he told me, he says, I haven't felt this way about anybody in so long. Like, I've been dreading telling you because he's like, I just wanted to keep like doing it as long as I could, but like I can't put energy into this, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, like so respectful, honestly. Like,
And it's crazy, the language even that maybe she's embellishing it a little bit and kind of adding her own language, but if that's how he's speaking, it's very, you might call it predatory.
respectful, and I really do like gauge like
This
how
Matt
much-
Rife
how
is
I
a
feel about
dangerous
man
guy, if
based
you
on,
ask
like, how
me,
he
Jerry.
handles like something like that, and he was so sweet to me and nice to me, and he hit all the points, and he like made me feel like good about it. So I was like, I just respect him a lot.
Yeah, go on, kill it.
And I've had that same like feeling about him all of this time because I'm just like, you know what? I like.
She does a lot of
I'm a
prefacing here
silent
before she
supporter. I've
drops the
watched him from
bomb,
afar. I
huh?
like love to see like him be successful, and like I was with him when his last special came out, so to see him get a Netflix special was like huge.
Right, you must have been so excited.
So imagine my like how I felt when I'm seeing like, oh my god, like this guy got like the one thing in the world that he wanted, and everybody fucking hates it. Like,
yeah,
hates it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god, I just felt so bad for him because I'm like,
yeah.
I don't think people really felt that strongly about the Matt Rife special. You know, I was on the Johnny O podcast recently, and he almost just felt the same way that I felt, really underwhelmed. Not edgy enough, not funny enough, just very middle of the road. So, I don't know. Yeah, Brooke thought they were very hateful, but, you know, I thought it was
whether
honest
it's funny or
criticism.
not is up in the air, but like he tries really hard and he works really hard, and I actually did just feel
All right,
so
Brooke,
bad
well, this
to
is about
see, like his one thing that he.
Now that we've prefaced this for 8 minutes, Brooke, let's go ahead and drop
So
the
that's
bomb.
why. So I didn't feel bad coming in here and defending him. And honestly, like you guys don't even know how bad it was because I cut some of it. I was like, I'm gonna get cooked. But I was on here like, I'm like, I love Matt. He respects women, like,
which is crazy.
I was like, I could because I really like. I'm like, I feel that I have always felt that way about him. I really felt like he respected me, like I did, and women in general.
But
tell me why.
But silent
Girl.
disrespect is just as loud as vocal disrespect.
I know, but
well, it wouldn't, you know, I have to, a little David Collins fact check there. Silent disrespect, certainly not as loud as any vocalized disrespect. Let's put a damper on that quickly, Tana.
On TikTok the other day, and I get tagged in a video of this girl, and it's her and Matt. It's all these photos of her and Matt, like a little slideshow, if you will. Okay.
Oh, that sounds cute.
I'm like, that's interesting. I go to the comments, and she had commented back to somebody, and she was like, relax, you guys. This was at the beginning of this year. I go, huh? I'm like, what? When? Like, when was it exactly?
Uh-oh.
Because I was seeing him at the beginning of this year. And
Right.
I'm like, when was it? So I DM her. Slay.
DM comes. All right. Jerry, could we get a drum roll here? We should put the drum roll in right about now.
DM her, and I'm like, hey, like, just wondering, honestly, like, what was the timeline exactly? Just because, like, I'm curious. Because
imagine if we had a Zoom right now, we could zoom right into this woman's face. Look at it. Tana is unconsolable.
Friend was not long after me either, so I'm like, it had to have been around the same time. Immediately, she puts me into a group chat.
Right. And that's the clip that's been going around.
You never want to be in a group chat with beautiful, strange women. Okay?
Well, you can add me to that group chat. I would take Beautiful Strange Women. That sounds like a fine group chat to me. And anybody frustrated at all the pausing that I'm doing over here, I apologize, but this clip has been going around. I hope that you've seen it by now.
When I tell you, Tana, you want to talk about women in STEM, there were timelines, there were Venn diagrams. We were comparing notes. It was so
I
crazy.
see why you waited to tell me this.
Those Venn diagrams
absolutely.
must be interesting.
I'm telling you, Tana, for a man who doesn't have time, this man had the most time.
You know, when I'm.
All right, we'll cut her off there. But for a man who doesn't have any time, he sure has the most time. And that's really our Matt Rife coverage. I think that's all. We kind of wanted to jump through some of those clips and just make sure everybody's kind of caught up on what's going on. Do we have any final notes there? Right, Crystalia-style sex ring around the country. That's another thing. This is a real national operation that he seems to be running here. But that's it. That was our coverage of Matt Rife. Did we do any exit close? Or are we just ending the show abruptly? All right, well, maybe I should shout out blindmike.net. You know, you find everything. It's a link tree. It's not actually much of a website. You find it and you find all his links there. So I'm not sure. Why don't we just pull that up on the website here?
I'm really mad. I just
There
started
we go.
laughing. Yeah,
To end the Matt Rife segment, we'll go to blindmike.net. You see it's in my suggested there. Unfortunately, the site cannot be reached. Oh, that's interesting. Blind Mike, you need to fix your website. So everybody listening, if anybody checks this and sees that it's fixed, make sure you email me, dc30minutehalfhour@gmail.com. That's great. This has been the Blind Mike Project. I've been David Collins, and you've been the best.
David Collins rides into town, a man of grit and fearless renown. His words cut through like a sharpened knife, bringing truth to this frontier life. Oh, David Collins, a man of might, his voice echoes through the night. He stirs our souls, and we'll stand tall for this challenging man who won't let us fall.